This guy. Jeez. To think they let me teach you people things.
All right, guys, and the recording is going. So, Robbie, in theory, is going to talk about stuff and things as we go through today. So, again, guys, ask questions. I'm going to start linking threads into the fleet chat. So, Robbie, take it away. Tell us about what it is that you do besides, terrible fit rags and things like that.
Yes. So aside from doing terrible fitting and being god-awful at solo PvP, like, nobody go look at my kill board, please. I beg of you, spare yourselves the agony. So I'm Robbie. For those of you who don't know, I run Gooniversity. I've been doing that for, 2 years, 3 years, somewhere in that range. Hopefully a lot of you that are here are kind of familiar with what Gooniversity already does, since you are, in fact, on a Gooniversity-sponsored class. Yeah, 2 sounds about right. I'd have to look. I remember, when I got asked to do it, I literally had, just woken up and I was, on the toilet in the morning, and then Merc pokes me and is like, "Hi, do you want to run Gooniversity?" I'm like, "What the hell?" So, anyway, that's how it happens. You get random pokes and shit like that. So, anyway, for Gooniversity, really, we kind of try and make it easier for pilots to get out in space. Oh, Goombum, you're terrible. So we really try and make it easy for you guys to get out in space and actually, play the game rather than just trying to think about game. When I started, I had a couple of false starts into Eve. If you go and look at my corporation history, somebody just linked me so I can, just talk about this. I ping-ponged through a lot of high-sec corps and such like that, and eventually, when I was just about getting ready to quit the game again, I decided, you know what, if I'm already thinking I'm going to quit, I may as well just go try nullsec out. Nullsec was always that big, scary place, and, I didn't really ever want to go there. So I decided to join Karma Fleet, and that was 4+ years ago at this point. And really what kind of made the difference was having that supportive infrastructure around to help me actually figure out how to play the game and that the game could be fun, and getting involved with people and such. In case it's obvious, I have no prepared remarks. I'm just going off the top of my head with this. I'm sure somebody's got a written speech or something like that. Broden, we're over in T5Z. If you want to bridge, just get on the Titan, and eventually I will look back at it and bridge a bunch of people over there. But yeah, if we have people waiting for the bridge, just somebody speak up, interrupt me, and say, "Hi, I need a bridge," and I'll put it up for you. Anyway, where was I? Yes. So, as far as getting out into space goes, there are a couple programs that we offer that I hope you're all familiar with. We do the free ship stuff. I know Hoff, who can't be here, is the guy that kind of runs that. He literally saves my ass with that daily. The guy who ran it when I came on, Rothburn Strong Tower, it was also really, really fantastic. Really great guy. So both of those guys have worked really hard to make sure that, GS Frigates matches up with, what's actually useful, and make sure that you guys have the ability to just kind of go into a channel, grab a ship, and get out and go participate in fleets. And that happens for somebody who's been in the Alliance for a day and just is like, I have no idea what the hell to do. We can just point them right at that spot and say, okay, go grab a ship from here, go on that fleet, die, come back, we'll give you more ships. Works out really well. And you guys say, people who are here who grab free ships, is this a good thing, bad thing? Yes, no. Somebody validate my existence in chat, please.
Lords.
Yes, Condors. So the other thing we do to kind of help you get, help out newer players is skill books. It used to be, I know they've made some changes recently that kind of made this a little more, flexible. It used to be that when you had a new player that would come in, they had to go.
You guys can shoot those rats to your heart's content.
Yeah, please kill the rats before they kill me. So, when a new player would come in and they had to get skill books, you had to run all over the place to do it, all that sort of stuff. So we have a program that hands out just packs of skill books that really kind of, encompass the good stuff that's actually needed to get, to just kind of make the game viable and make it so you can actually play the game and do well with it. Based on how much money I throw at Rathcan, who's the guy who runs that program to keep it maintained on a daily basis, it's definitely something that's pretty popular, and being able to put that in front of a new player and say, hi, this is exactly what you need to be able to go in and get stuff done. Absolutely great. We also have skill plans, various things up, that help with that. I know there's another skill books thing that's out there for acquiring some, questionable effort ones, but it doesn't see a ton of use. And by that, I mean, I usually forget to check it for like a month and a half. Being reminded. So yes, as Ranger and XY are linking in there, there's a link to the skill books packs post, plus some newbie skill plans. Oh, Goombum, did you bring me an implant? Oh, you're a saint.
We got +1 and Detect W.
Hey, implants.
Copy.
Okay, let me just plug this thing in so I can actually turn my guns on here. And how do I actually turn the... I have to go into the fitting window to turn that on. Okay. Anyway,
Landing.
oh, are we going to get to kill someone?
Yeah, all right,
We
guys,
got
heads
really
up.
fast lock.
We may get something. Interceptors
He's
are a little
jumped.
tricky.
It's probably a travel Ares, but yeah.
Probably.
Yep.
Yep, and he's gone.
There's a bubble on T5, so he's gonna get stop bubbled there.
No, he won't.
Oh.
Yeah,
He's
nullified.
bubble immune.
Oh. Okay.
Hey,
So,
somebody
guys,
has
we do-
learned something today. Wonderful.
So, guys, we do have some scouts watching the route. We're doing the meet and greet thing, but we are trying to shoot some baddies who come in. If that is the case, we'll try and get you guys some kill mails.
Yeah.
But
so,
I interrupted Robbie, so we'll let him keep going.
No worries, no worries. You weren't interrupting shit. Anyway, so I guess that brings me to kind of the third thing that Gooniversity really tries to do, which is these these larger classes, these group learning sessions. And Ranger's been running those since way before I took over. And he's been doing a super fantastic job. So here's the point where I get to kiss his ass a little bit. It's definitely been something that I think is a highlight of what we do, just because as you can see, we get people that come in class and learn something. And to me, that's kind of why we do what we do. Is this is a fantastic game. It's also a really terrible game, but it's a fantastic place to be with. To be just hanging out with people. Get on comm, shoot the shit, go on fleets, all that sort of stuff. And classes are a great introduction to that, because it's hey, get out here, just come sit and chill with us. We'll teach you what you need to know. I know there's some that are done that are a little more advanced. We get stealth bombers in play. I know I've been the bombing target for stealth bombers a few times. It's really fun. But I let him try and blow up last time I did that. My apostle, yeah, that's what I did. I bombed my apostle last time. So all sorts of stuff like that, and we try and continually go through the course offerings and make sure they're actually consistent with what's needed. In fact, Ranger, remind me, I need to talk to you about capital shit at some point. So we just want to make sure that it's getting out. So Christopher, the reason why we don't have fleets like this out 27 or 24/7, one, as Goombong says, nobody's stopping you from going and taking out your own fleets. I know skirmish commanders, some people from that are going to be in here a little later, and they'll talk more about that. But I highly encourage you to go do that if you want to lead fleets. Join skirmish commanders. That's really something that I know there are some education classes out there for it. Sothersil, I think, runs one from time to time. It's not something we really take into account because it really is something that you have to want to do. But just getting a group of guys together, going and shooting shit is fantastic. I know these filaments they just put in the game for the Christmas event are great for this sort of thing, like really, really great. I'm sitting on a giant pile of them, and I need to go whelp things. So yeah, as XY's linked. And Guilford, you're talking to the wrong person to try and teach you how to fly a saber. I have literally, every time I've flown a Dictor, it has exploded on me, aside from one, which the great Asher Elias was able to keep alive for an entire fleet. I still have that ship. I'm very proud of it.
I think I was on that fleet.
Yeah.
Guilford, if you want to do saber stuff, it's something that you've got to keep in mind. They always die, so you're going to die a lot. That's the first lesson of sabers.
Yeah,
In
sabers
some
just
places,
explode.
That's true.
Yeah, I was joking, and I'm just terrible at the game, so it is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, as linked,
We're all
my
terrible.
keyboard is indicator that I'm pretty bad at this game.
We've
And then
got
the
+1
last
in
thing-
Detect W.
Ooh, fun. Let's see if he comes through.
He's left.
Okay. No, it doesn't look like you came in here. So I'll keep, moving hot air around, which is a good thing because it's like, how cold is it outside right now? For those of you that don't know, I live in Alaska, and I woke up this morning. It was -9 degrees. Apparently, it's still -9. Holy crap! Nope, -6 now. That's not too terrible. Car will always start at this point.
It's -12 here in Norway.
Oh, fun. Or are you talking Fahrenheit or Celsius?
Celsius.
See, I'm talking Fahrenheit. So yeah.
Oh.
A little chilly. So yeah, as Ranger mentions, we do have a tackle class. Yeah. So okay, diversion time since Prayers brought it up. Yeah. Once you get to -10, it really just feels like really cold no matter what. But my boss actually did work up at Prudhoe Bay when he was younger, and he said that there's like a certain point where the temperature it gets cold enough that once it gets colder than that, it really doesn't matter until it gets cold enough to the point where exposed skin starts like freezing. Then you have problems. He said that's about -40 Fahrenheit is when it starts getting really nasty. But anything from like -35 Fahrenheit up to like up to like 0 Fahrenheit, there's really no real difference between that, according to him. But yeah, he did oil field work for a long time, so I'll take his word for it and hope I never have to do it. Anyway, to
Local
continue
Furion Rat
on-
Knight, I moved you guys into wing and squad command positions just in case something happens to my connection.
Okay. So, the other thing we try and do a lot of, and King Arthur or Elnu, same person, 2 names for some reason, is the one that really runs this. We do some peer-to-peer mentoring because, for some people, the classroom style thing doesn't really work as a good learning environment. They need a little more one-on-one action to kind of get things figured out, which is perfectly fine. For some people that really helps them get in. I know we've got a really talented staff that does that. Some of them are actually very, very good at this game, very good at solo PvP, things like that. And if you do want to get into stuff like that, there's a thread that I'm sure somebody will be linking in chat momentarily, where you can post about that and kind of gauge interest and go from there. And we're always looking to kind of see what we can do with some of these. With some of these things to keep them relevant for you guys. So, if those of you who are new and new at heart, as you're going through things, like, please don't hesitate to come up and say, hey, I would really like something that would help with this or help with that. And, we'll see what we can do. Ooh, there's +18 in BX. That's fun. Sort of getting, I want to go fight in my Varger, and then lose it horribly because, again, I'm bad at this game. Yeah. Colane, having a beverage in your other hand when you go to press F1, I mean, let's be honest, we all know you're really talking about something that's physically attached to you that requires another tab open in your web browser to dirty websites. Beverage. Yes. Anyway, so, as you guys are doing stuff like this, don't be afraid to give us feedback and say, hey, this is working well, this isn't, et cetera, et cetera. Like, we can't keep doing what we're doing unless we know it's working. It's something that, these guys put a lot of time and effort into, and I'm forever grateful for that every day. Yeah, Licky, there was a period of time where Elnu had a personal problem a personal issue that he was working on resolving, and there was a gap in there, and I do apologize for that. But it was the sort of thing that it just kind of hit him really suddenly, and we didn't really get a chance to communicate well on it. So I'm sorry that came up, but we should be back to normal function on that one.
One thing I do want to point out to you guys, the very first Gooniversity class was actually created by Fuyun, who's up here with me, and Robbie and Rat Knight. Fuyun actually created what became the 102 class that he and I then heavily modified, but the very first class was actually created by Fuyun. I don't remember when we did that, but it was a hell of a long time ago.
Yeah,
Yeah.
before Robbie got into direction.
Yeah, it was Yeah, it was way before then. It was still when World Chatter was running things. But no, really, if we want to talk about the first class, I think I'd be remiss to not mention Siren Bixit and the What the Fuck 101 class that he runs from time to time. What is that? Usually first Sunday of every month?
He does them about every other week now.
Okay, about every other week. So yeah, so those classes are really fantastic. I wish Sirhan could be here to talk about it a little bit. But yeah, he runs those. So if you have friends and such that you're trying to get into the game and get them into Karma Fleet or wherever, and they're out here going, "What the fuck do I do?" Send them to Sirhan's class. It's been running since somebody find the post and figure out when he posted that. I want to say it's been running for like almost 8 or 9 years at this point. It's been a long time.
I don't think it's that long, but it's a long time. I'll dig it up.
Yeah.
Way before we started with our WTF 102. That's actually the reason why the classes are called WTF, because we do like addition to what Sirhan does. If you really have never ever even started playing Eve and really it's your first day ever, certain classes are the really go-to where you want to go.
6 years for Sirhan.
Yeah, 6 years. So that one's been going on for 6 years, and it really is kind of the foundation of what we try and do today with a lot of stuff is with that. Yes, pre-orders we are doing a lot of showing off with bigger ships.
And shameless plug for Sirhan's class. It is actually the next offering is this Sunday, so 2 days from today he's doing another one.
So yes, if you do not know what the fuck, you should go in that class. So yay. I mean, other than that, I'll really just kind of open up to questions. I'd prefer you ask them like in comms so people can hear them. If you do ask it in Fleet, I'll just try and read it back so people on the recording later aren't going, "What the hell is this guy talking about?" But yeah, if anybody has any questions or such, just let me know. While you guys are thinking of questions, because I do know sometimes you need a little bit of time to think about these things beforehand, I will talk a little bit about faculty and kind of what it takes to get in there. If you do think that, hey, I kind of know my shit, I want to get in and I want to get in and help other people. The faculty class or the faculty group, we've got, what is it these days, about like 30 or so active, like hardcore active people in there. Something like that across all the departments. And if you want to get into faculty, we do have a recruitment thread. It's hiding somewhere in the recruitment forums. I've been meaning to bump that for a little while. But what we can do, so what the process is there is there's a little application form. It just goes into a Google Sheet, and I then look through those and decide, oh, this person actually, put in a modicum of effort and is trying to do that. And then we review them as a group with, the people who are running the various departments. That'd be. And then from there, we go in and say, hey, these are the people we want to bring in, and, we get you involved and we try and get you set up to be able to do stuff right away. So, yeah, if you feel like you're on the more experienced side of things and want to get in and help out, please don't hesitate to put in an application. I do occasionally forget to check the application inbox for like months at a time. So if you are waiting on it and, you think I just haven't seen it, feel free to poke me and say, hi, look at the thing, idiot. So yeah, does anybody have any questions, comments, school appropriate jokes perhaps?
What would you say is the biggest skill gap among just average line pilots in the Alliance?
I mean, are you talking like player skill or skill trained skills?
Yeah, just player skills, things that people commonly screw up that they might not know how to do better.
Well, I mean, I think there's a difference between, saying, hey, maybe we're not doing a good enough job of teaching people something, and hey, this is just something that people just constantly fuck up. I think when people get out in space for the first time as a member of Goons, there's a lot of stuff to wade through. We are a very old organization in terms of this sort of stuff. We're very mature in that way too, but. Oh, Broden, why are you linking me crap when I'm trying to talk? Okay.
That's awesome.
And oh dear God, no, Okay. Anyway, let me make. Speaking of bridges, let me make sure my Titan's still on the Keepstar. For those of you that are looking to join us that are on the Keepstar, we're just over in T5ZI. You can jump the gate if you want and come over, or you can get on the Titan and then yell at me when I'm done talking, and I'll bridge you over. But yeah, as far as like big skill gaps go, I mean, I think a lot of it comes down to, you know, just we take in so many people, we have so many people around that it's kind of hard to say that there is like a definitive gap. I think if it were up to me, from where I was saying, I think the biggest thing would be just kind of, you know, basic fleet work and such. That's something that, you know, no matter how much we try and teach it, the best teacher for it is experience. So when you do get fleets that have, you know, tons of new players on, it's, you know, sometimes you get people who just don't really know what they're doing, and that's, you know, that's that. But yes, Double Neg just nailed it. The biggest skill gap in the entire alliance is not listening to when the gate is fucking red, do not jump. And then like half the fleet goes through. Like that's the biggest one right there. Double Neg, you win something. I don't know. I'll have to go raid my skin can and find you something.
I'll toss 100 mil.
Local high hole.
Okay, so that was actually a really good question. I think that's good. As far as, you know, like actual skills that people lack, the biggest one would be the Magic 14. If you are not done with the Magic 14, which should be listed in somewhere, you know, that's probably, I think, the biggest gap with new people that come in is once you've done those, you know, once you've done those skills, you're able to have, you know, you're able to basically fit pretty much every ship the way you want to do it. Short of, you know, being able to use, you know, various guns, pieces of equipment and such, but you're really not limited by power grid or CPU in the same way that other, you know, that fits with lesser skills would be. So that's the biggest one I think that a new player really needs to focus on, are those skills. They get you to the point where you can actually, you know, do shit. That was a long-winded answer.
Local Cracknet, don't worry about travel scepters. We'll never be able to catch them. But anything else, let me know. And I'm sure I just butchered your name, dude. I'm sorry, but
Local, how's that show going, Ranger?
So for a newer player looking to join a Sager squad or just do something a little bit different, what direction would you recommend for them?
I mean, really, it depends on like what you want to do. I know we're going to have lots of people that come through and talk later, but the best thing you can do is just kind of go look at the recruitment section and see what sounds good. The groups that I've been a part of in the past, that I would really recommend being involved with, you know, I haven't flown with them recently, but Space Violence always does good stuff for just getting out and shooting things. You know, if you at all think you could lead a fleet, you know, that, like, let's say you used to play World of Tanks and called battles there, or, you know, we're a raid leader in Warcraft or whatever. Join skirmish commanders. Go drag other people with you, sometimes kicking and screaming, to go and get content and do that sort of stuff. Other things like, I mean, other than that, it really does kind of come down to personal taste. Like if you enjoy flying Logi, join Rep Swarm. If you want to get into boosting or such, join Link Swarm. It really just depends on what you want to do. I don't think there's like any organizations that are kind of, you know, you must join these in order to have fun. It really does come down to taste. But I think anything that gets you out in space doing what you want to do with people who want to do the same thing is going to really help you stick, rather than just kind of fizzling out and stopping logging in. Okay, somebody other than Goliford asked me a question because I feel bad that he's monopolizing everything.
What is your favorite color?
My favorite color is blue. And the reason why it is blue is because when I was a kid, my best friend and I both liked red, but we only had one red sippy cup. Like, this was when I was like 3 or 4. And so in order to stop getting in fights with him over whether or not one of us could use the red sippy cup, I, you know, grabbed the blue one instead. And yeah, such is life when you're 3, and that's really important. I heard Broden ask what my favorite ship is. I am a big fan of all things battleship and battlecruiser, just because they have battle in the name and they sound cool. But I mean, my favorite battle wagon is probably going to be the Hyperion, just because, King of the Brawl, all that jazz. And then to stick with, the Galente thing, I really do like flying Brutixes. They're really, really fun. Colleen asks, what has been my most rewarding experience as an instructor in Gooniversity? I'll let some of the other instructors answer this one too, who are here. But for me, it was, just really seeing some new players, and this has happened more than once. Just kind of seeing what they were working on just click for them and have it be something that they're like, that now they had the confidence to go and do. Like there was one guy, and I completely forget the dude's name, but he was like really unsure of kind of how to how to engage someone, like how to go pick a fight. So I took out a ship and told him, okay, here's what I want you to do. I want you to come in, do this, and just really kind of walked him through, like, okay, here's how you target me, here's how you turn on a warp disruptor, here's how you realize what somebody's doing to you. Ooh, there were quite a few gate flashes there. That looks to be friendly.
Looks like.
Yeah.
Everyone who's new in system is friendly.
Yep. Okay, so but yeah, just kind of seeing. Just kind of seeing him get the confidence to be like, oh, when I said, okay, now what I want you to do is I want you to warp off, come back, and come try and actually actually fight me. I'm not going to blow up your ship, but you're not going to blow up mine either. But just come actually try and fight. And just seeing him go from I don't even want to undock because I don't know what I'm doing to I'm going to throw myself in. I want to say it was in a Condor actually, memes. Throw himself in this Condor at a battleship and just be like, I'm going to keep you from moving anywhere was really cool to see. Ranger, do you want to answer that one too? What was your most rewarding experience as an instructor?
I think it's basically the same. All the instructors that I've got who are in the group with me, the whole thing that we like to do is to teach people new things, and one of the best lines and I've heard it multiple times, one of the best lines is, I played this game for X number of years and it's the first time I've ever seen this. The little tricks that you pick up just from playing for years that you do. One of the ones that I tell people all the time is if you hold down your left shift key and click show infos, it will open them in new windows, so you don't have to use the scroll back and forward thing. And there's usually at least one person on every fleet who's never heard that little trick. And it's those little things.
Can you repeat that one? Hold on.
So if you do a show info on anybody, like in fleet right now, there's an easy way to do it. Hold down your left shift key after you click the first one, and it will open their portrait pictures in new windows. You can do it on show info on wormholes. I use this a lot when we do the wormhole class. Speaking of that, guys, I got confirmation just a few minutes before the class started. Kathy will be here from Pathfinders in a couple hours. Actually, about an hour now. You can do it on modules too, so you can. It's similar to the compare function that CCP uses. I don't care for the grid they've got. I read it old school. But we've got Brown Star here who's going to talk to us about Coord and what Coord does and how all their things go. So we're gonna kick Robbie out of talking so Brown can take over. We're going to try and keep moving so that Brown will be here, and he's here. So Brown Star, please take it away.
Hi, everybody. How's everybody doing today? Very good holiday in yada yada.
Yo.
Woo! Yeah, it's not too bad.
I'm Brown Star. I'm one of the core directors for the Alliance. How many people actually, just in fleet chat, if you think you know what Coord does, put it in there. What do you think a typical Coord does, actually? And Zora Bor is right. He's one of the coordinators, so.
Perhaps I like my answer better. I'm just saying.
Local, you want to yoink my priority?
I got you.
Skim-esque, yeah, that's a good one. No, it does not involve yelling. In a nutshell, I think what a lot of folks in the Alliance think coordinators do is just send out the fleet pings, because that is one of our primary tasks. oddly, when people join the Coord team, they learn that it's much more like herding cats around in space. So what our coordination team is, what the purpose of the coordination team is, and what we do is we're there to basically do all of the mid-level logistics, so that when our fleet commanders take a fleet out, all they have to do is worry about shooting mans. So we work with other alliances, hostile alliances, other FCs. We plan routes for FCs. If we have an objective, let's say we're going to save something somewhere, we'll plan a route if the FC needs that. We'll plan bridgers for fleets. Basically, like any of that legwork that needs to get done, we do. We work with the Recon team quite a bit, to find enemy structures or enemy fleets to shoot. Set up strategic operations for those and whatnot. Where we really kick in, though, is when we go to war. So during wartime, you guys may or may not know this, but like all the peacetime fleets get canceled, and we get kind of put like on a strategic operation list. And we have a finite list of objectives that need to be done every day. So as a new coordinator would log into the game, they'd check the list, go through some of our region commander programs and scouting programs to see what targets we need to hit, see what's prioritized, and then find available fleet commanders to take you guys out there to press F1 on things. But yeah, in a nutshell, I would say being a coordinator is a lot like herding cats, because you work with the entire military organization in Goonswarm and our allies to get simple objectives complete. So it's a lot of behind the scenes that that most people don't know. I've had a few coordinators join and say, "Oh, I thought we just sent pings out." And while that is a big part of our job, it's kind of the only public facing part. Yes, we do. We do kind of have to. I'm looking at Executor here. Random skirmish commander. Can I go shoot this random thing? Coord, no. Grab spray bottle. We in the background we have a large, I'd say, arsenal of things that need to get done, things that need to get done and not need to get done for certain purposes. So to a skirmish commander, it might look like we're gatekeeping some quote-unquote content, but there's a purpose why we're not shooting an Athenor in low sec or a test keep star somewhere else. Yeah, I apologize. John couldn't make it here today. He's our what I call the A director. It's the head director of the coordination team. Handles the Euro time zone. I'm mainly U.S. time zone. During wartime, we don't really have time zones. You're on a lot. Let's see what else.
I'll say, Brown, can you talk to us about the last couple of wars on how kind of things have gone? I know the last Northern War, we were up at some weird freaking hours. What was that like for you guys?
It was miserable. So the last war, Northern Tribute, was a lot different than previous wars because we had the new Citadel mechanics. We kind of knew how it would work with keep stars. We've bashed them before, but we'd never gone through and tried to completely clean out a region. So it was kind of a test of how that would work and to kind of show CCP some weaknesses in how their system works. So a lot of the times what we'd do is we'd start in the Euro time zone and we'd go ref Athenors, keep stars, Fortizars in a specific order, so we knew when they would come out, like how to handle them. How in Tribute, how they all timed everything to take a tank away from us is they timed everything to the Australian time zone. So regardless of when we ref the structures, they would come out, every week on a Tuesday at my time, 3 a.m. Usually, anytime from 0800 Eve time to 12 Eve time. We had some days in the last Tribute War we had 45 structures coming out at the same time. So we would have to be managing 6 to 7 fleets at a time, making sure all the FCs had their objectives, had the people, had the a Titan bridge, whatever they needed to accomplish their task. But we were kind of spinning all those plates at the same time. Structure grinding for a lot of people is really fun. For coordinators, it really burns us out because when you are managing more than 3 fleets at a time, it really drains you.
Brown, we got a couple of questions in Fleet here. I'm going to just read them. So John's asking, I would really be interested to know why you start wars when you do. So do you get to make that choice?
We're a big influence in when we go to war, the Coord team. Along with the rest of the directors and the other military directors, Asher and Jay. We all get together. It's a little weird, someone could attack us and we're not going to go directly to war, right? There's a lot of factors that have to go into that. Right now, a lot of those factors are playing against CCP. So, with the last Tribute War, we kind of showed CCP how bad time zone tanking is, and while they're making strides to change that, we want to see that the next iteration of changes to see how that might play out for our line members and make sure they have a fun time.
So there's a follow-up here from Goombomb, and I hadn't heard this, but he's asking about how long it would take to grind a region, and he's saying it was like 10 months.
Yeah, the way I heard it was like at the rate we were destroying things up north with like uncontested timers, if someone tried to do that to us in Dell, it would take them around 10 months just to clear out our stuff.
More like 18 months.
Yeah, if you add enough bodies to it, it could easily be done. Delve could be glassed in 3-4 weeks if you had enough bodies. But with a sizable force, like if Goonswarm attacked Goonswarm and tried to clean out Delve, yeah, it'd take over a year to kill all of those Athenors and stuff. That's changed now because you can't set the day of the week on the exit timers for structures. So before, what you would do is you'd set all of your structures to come out at the same time and the same day. So it really stretched your forces then on showing up at 3 a.m., alarm clocking at 3 a.m., and then handling 100 structure kills.
Those of you guys who were not on the ops that Brown's talking about, Lupo's here talking about, there's a lot of us up here on the command channels who are on those ops, and I don't remember. I know, Brown, I was there with you. We did a lot of that, and we were hitting structures with like single supers and everything like that, and that's in the past, so we can talk about that now. Was that a wise thing, or did we just not give a shit anymore?
At the point, we decided to start doing that, and I repped a lot of structures like solo with my super while I was managing 5 fleets. But we hoped that the enemy would undock and fight us, and basically at that point, yeah, we didn't care. If we lost a dread or lost a super hitting an Athenor, like, oh well, hey, somebody undocked and started fighting us, we knew we had enough bodies to pivot on that and have a good fight.
Not only that, we had Kunmi. I mean, he'd ref an entire constellation all at once.
Those Lashaks really did a number.
I guess that segues into a question that I can ask then, just to keep the convo going here. Do you think stuff like the like the Lashaks being that kind of more quote unquote special operations style group, do you think that's something that's going to happen a ton more going? Do you think that's kind of like the future of warfare in Eve, as it were? More spec ops rather than large fleets getting together and smacking each other on the dick?
Yes and no. I think the Leshak doctrine works well with a lot of support. To be quite honest, when we were running the Leshak group, when Kumi was running the Leshak group a lot, we were doing it with our pants down because we were uncontested. If we had been contested, we would have lost a lot of Leshaks. The doctrine is great because you can, with low numbers, you ref really hard structures, Sotios, Fortizars, even Keepstars with them quite easily. I think going forward, I think you'll see a lot of Leshaks get pushed into Baltic doctrines when we're structure grinding. So with that said, if you've wanted to fly a Leshak, definitely train for it. As far as upcoming wars using a lot of Leshaks, I don't know. We're seeing a lot of dynamics change right now in the game. There's not a whole lot of people that have the desire still to like what Tony called it, glass a region, just to go into a region and destroy everything in it, because there's no real loss to the enemy team there. Structures are incredibly cheap, and they don't really lose an income stream because they've lost an Athenor. It's not that huge of a blow to them.
We've got another question for you here from John again. Do people like Kunmi, Big Bill the Boss, and the others who go and do their own thing have a really big influence? Do they work with Coord before they deploy out to a region to do stuff?
The good ones, yeah. Kunmi, Big Bill the Boss, they'll come to basically the Coord directors and say, hey, I'm really interested in harassing X region. And then they'll go and do it. They're very proactive about selecting their target, and they work really closely with the coordination team.
Zungan's also another good one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Zungan. If you haven't heard Zungan Ops or being Zungan Ops pings, I think they're currently deployed, and they harass a lot of P-Horde space and kill supers and oracles quite often.
Just a nice little segue from Brown there. If you guys are interested in that, we do have a speaker later today. Isabella from Black Ops will be here, and they are a big part of the Zungan Ops that was just mentioned.
Yep. And one thing that I want to say on that, back to the Kunmi and Big Bill the Boss, like, you don't necessarily have to be some big name player to do these things. What it really takes is just that initiative and that the willing to put in the work to make it happen. With the last Roar deployment, when we went up and fought Deadco, a lot of that was 3 or 4 people setting that all up, putting in the work ahead of the time, and then Asher coming in and getting a lot of great fights in the Roar area, and then us kind of deploying up there and getting a lot of Titan kills. Yeah, Black Ops is a fantastic group.
I'll say, and out in space, guys, right now, we've got somebody deploying some anchorable bubbles just in a line so that you all can see them. So he is setting them. I mean, they're out a little ways from the gate. They're about 200 clicks out. So if you want to spin your camera to whatever direction you need to do, they're onlining right now. You can see the different sizes here. He's put out some small and some medium T1 and T2s, so that you can see the difference in the size of these bubbles. So they are deploying right now. You all can take a look at that. Yeah, for those of you who were not involved in the Roar deployment, that was, in my opinion, that was a lot of fun. They did some really stupid things, and I know I was on a lot of the fleets with Asher, and we just looked at them and laughed.
A lot of what happened in Roar was really dependent on about 4 or 5 people putting in a lot of hard work, though. Like, we did a lot of, for lack of a better word, whelp fleets, where we would go in and our intent was kind of to lose the fight, to get Deadco to drop supers, drop Titans, keep on doing that consistently, so we could bait out, Titan kills. And that's a lot what Coord does at that higher level, is we work with groups to get that big strategy to say, okay, if we're going to attack tribute, how are we going to do it? Where are we going to stage from? What objectives become our priority? Where do we need to focus? And do we have the right tools? And the right tools are great skirmish commanders, and we've got a bunch of those.
I always
Guys,
considered
feel free to shoot the reds.
I always considered Coord. There's most times if you're in the middle, there's a difference between tactics and strategy, and Coord kind of sits between the two. They are concerned with the people logistics, the fleet logistics of executing the overall strategy. In my worldview, I may be wrong here, but that's how I see it. Where the strategy comes from our leadership team, Mittens, the Sky Marshals, those people who get involved and make some sort of determination of the overall direction that we're going to be taking. And Coord is the interface between that high-level strategy and the low-level tactics employed by our skirmish commanders.
We've got another question here for you, Brown. It's regarding the Hakonnen deployment. So for those of you who aren't aware, this was quite a few years ago. It was 3 years ago, 4 years ago, something like that. Talking about the Typhoon Doctrine that was intended to bash structures, and we ended up using it in battleship versus other battleship fights. His question is there a story behind that?
Yeah, so the Hakonnen deployment...
You're talking in local, Brown.
The Hakonnen deployment, and I do that often. I'll talk in local and then talk in regular. So if I do that, I apologize. The Hakonnen deployment was kind of an experiment. We wanted to see how well just a subcap deployment would work against, basically a super capital umbrella. So we needed a doctrine that could kind of firewall and still apply damage while moving. The Typhoon Doctrine was great for that. What we learned is, in this day and age, in EVE, you can't really take just subcaps when you have such an oppressive super capital force to deal with. I think a lot of if we had just battleship on battleship fights, the Typhoons would have been fantastic. But when you add the fighter mechanics, Titans on top of that, you just can't really hold grid with them.
So I linked in for you guys. There's the Skirmish Commanders recruiting thread that Brown mentioned earlier. I have a question for you, Brown, because I can't seem to find the Coord thread. I'm not sure if you deleted it or I'm just ignoring it. But how does somebody get to be a Coord? What's kind of involved in that application process? And then we've got another question after that for you.
Sure. As far as the application process, Coord is a closed group. We don't have open applications. We'll do what we call application or recruitment drives, where maybe one of the Coord members steps away from the game or retires, and we need to fill those spots. We'll open up a recruitment drive and look for folks in a certain time zone or all time zones. That happens maybe once or twice a year. The Coord group is a highly what we call a CI screened group, meaning you go through various security checks and a vetting process to make sure that you're able to join the group. I think we still have like a minimum. You have to be in Goon Swarm Federation only, so Condi only, for a minimum of 6 months, and have no hidden skeletons in your closet that we can see to join the team. We look. What I do basically when I look for new Coord is look for someone who can communicate well. I think that's probably the first skill that you need as a coordinator, and then has some kind of military background. Maybe this person used to be a skirmish commander or knows how to lead fights, because I think that gives you a leg up on helping other skirmish commanders and fleet commanders do their jobs. Kind of have been there before.
So I've got a general question here for you guys. Again, this is coming out of the fleet chat, but for those SIGs that are closed, recruiting one, and specifically they're mentioning Black Ops here, but there's a lot of them that have vouch requirements. How do you get other people to be willing to give you a vouch? I have my own thoughts on that, but I'm curious as to what your guys' thoughts are as well. So the actual question is, but how does someone get invited / noticed for SIGs that need invites, such as Black Ops? And there are quite a few of them that are that way.
Well, I can take a stab at that, and then we can let Brown do it if you want. Or Brown, if you want to go first.
I mean, this doesn't really apply to Coord, but for like Black Ops, it's more about just getting yourself out there and hanging out with the people that you want to hang out with. Putting the time in. I know Black Ops does like gate camps, and while they're not pinged to everybody, if you go on a few and get noticed, someone will vouch you in.
Yeah, so at least for Black Ops specifically, I know they have a public. I want to say it's a Jabber channel, and I think it's linked in their. Their recruitment thread. But as Brown was saying, going and hanging out with these guys and just kind of being, hey, I'm so and so, I want to do this. But then the biggest thing also that I've found, and just to kind of put this in, like don't go hump anyone's leg. Even if you really do want to get in there and do that sort of stuff, don't do put yourself out there. Do say, hey, I'm so and so. I'm interested in doing this. How can I help? You got to be communicative, but don't go hump someone's leg and be like, oh, I must do everything you want because I totally went into this org or whatever. Leg humping, at least with a lot of people who are in higher positions, is really not appreciated. It does take away from the ability to say, hey, this person is here because they want to be here. They're here because they want space power, and that's usually a really good way to not end up joining one of those orgs. So nobody go hump Brown's leg. Please, don't do that.
Yeah. No, we don't take kindly to leg humpers.
Yeah, I'm going to echo pretty much what Robbie said there. I know when I do it, most of the people don't know that I am in Reavers and deal with all the applications coming to Reavers. And if you put in there that, Asher's the best or that I am the coolest, I pretty much automatically reject you because you're a scrub. Because it says to me that you want to be space important, and a lot of these members of our groups, you don't know who we are. We sit in the background. When you go through some of these things, you just don't see a whole lot of us out, but you will see us on the fleets. If you know who we are, you will find us on main fleet. So the one piece I'm going to add to what Brown and Robbie are saying is go on the main fleets, be, not useless, be helpful doing things. And you might be surprised how many people who are in these SIGs are on the main fleets as well. A lot of us do that. We're almost out of time here for Brown. We've got a few minutes left. So I have a question here for you, which just scrolled by. Let me get it. Okay, with the OR and ANUM changes, is there any thought to splitting Theta or the standing fleet up into another SIG and umbrelling a second region?
No, there is not. I'll answer that very simply. So this topic comes up quite often, like, hey, how come we can't cover Southern Delve or this region or this pocket or something like that? It's because when you split up your super force, and it's a voluntary super force that defends, like Theta Comms, or I know Karma Fleet Standing does the same thing in their pocket. It really weakens it. So to spread us out really thinly would mean we wouldn't be able to respond to a dread bomb very effectively.
It was just mentioned in Fleet. I want to make sure I put this out for you guys. Black Ops _pub in Jabber is their public channel. You all can join that. Tonksy, thank you for linking that or putting that in there.
One good thing about the OR ANOM changes is that they'll just make people move around. I mean, people think this is a real big nerf to miners and Gurgoons, but I look at it as a buff. It takes a lot less time to mine than Mercoxic. Your belts will clear faster because there's less ore in them, and you can cycle around in a couple of systems and get the same amount that you used to. Just means you need to move a little more.
And moons.
Yeah, the moons are great. I mean, if you're struggling and you don't want to be bothered moving around, like get a couple of just like Nice or Arknor moons. And that's not a Coord thing, but
it's a nice segue for me. So speaking of moon mining, can you tell us a little bit about the changes to the Locust fleets after the I can't pronounce it right, the Locustania or however that was?
after the sinking of the Locustina, yeah. So we as coordinators kind of learned a lot there. We flew with a little bit of hubris, and some oracles died. The good fit ones got reimbursed. But what we do now with the Locust fleets is we have an abundance of secured sinos for people to jump to, as well as myself, Jay, or John also has visual eyes on every sino before we call for it to be lit, so that won't happen again. Going on the Locust fleet is a great way to flex your super in Titan. I would expect that the enemies try to do another one of those, so possible dread kills on every Locust fleet are a pretty good chance.
Oh, okay, guys, do we have any last questions here for Brown? We're going to switch over here in just a moment to Lupo, who is going to talk to us about GSOL. But any final things for Brown Star before we unceremoniously kick him out?
Right, thanks for having me, guys. Take it away, Lupo.
Thanks for coming in, Brown. Sorry. So Lupo is going to talk about GSOL and all the cool stuff that they do, and I'm going to link their thread here in just a second. But Lupo, please take it away.
Basically, as it says in most of our signatures, we fuel towers. It's kind of a pastiche at this point. Basically, GSOL is responsible for maintaining the infrastructure that drives Delve. Jump gates, sino beacons, public moon fracks, the strategic structures like the 1DQ Keepstar, most of the Keepstars around, most of the T2 Tataras for refining. All of this is provided as part of the alliance and is paid for by member taxes. So we're the Department of Transportation Infrastructure, the Department of Interior, however you want to call it. Basically, we're the ones responsible for making sure that Delve is livable and that it just works. Most of GSOL's functions are done behind the scenes. We interact with many groups. We actually interact with Coord, we interact with the Sky teams, we interact with everything else. If there's some sort of a deployment going on, usually we know ahead of time because we need to pre-position supplies. We coordinate with our capital operations team to sometimes help move their fuel for the capitals and the super capitals. Basically, we're there as the Sherpas at times of the Goonswarm Federation as well. So we're just basically there to make things work.
So I know, Lupo, from talking to you and Tuzzy for a long time, you guys got some crazy numbers of shit that you've moved and bought and done all of that kind of stuff. And you give us, our newbies, an idea. Yeah, James is asking, how many fuel blocks do we use in a week? Can you give us an idea of the true scale of, I mean, not all of Delve, because you guys don't fuel every Citadel, but just the ones under control. Can you give us an idea of that?
We burn through somewhere between 2 and 2.5 million fuel blocks a week. We spend an inordinate amount of the tax on fuel. Liquid ozone, which goes into the gates and a bunch of other things, is cheap here comparatively to everywhere else in the universe because it's basically a waste product of getting heavy water and some of the other stuff. But fuel blocks, we go through tons. I mean, we actually usually only carry 1 to 2 weeks of stock as an emergency. We're basically like the Walmart or Target. We do not carry a large inventory of things. We are just-in-time inventory or just-in-time ordering for our supplies. We do go ahead and try to arrange with certain suppliers to have a steady income or steady supply of this type of stuff. There are times that we'll actually have open buy orders in places for fuel blocks or other things, but we do go through a lot of fuel blocks each and every week.
So I know GSOL is, again, it's kind of a crazy closed say, just like Brown was talking about with Coord. I put in the link for you guys. I'll link it again in Fleet here in just a second. But when you are interested in getting into GSOL, what kind of things, like, should you be on Sissy looking at mechanics, or do you guys teach new people? Do you expect them to know how all this crazy shit works? Like, what kind of skills does somebody need before they could go into GSOL?
Basically, GSOL doesn't require a lot of skills. We've tried to automate everything as possible because we operate under the assumption that goons are dumb. Even ourselves. I make mistakes all the time. Tuzzy makes mistakes. Our subdirectors make mistakes. Things happen. It's having in place the procedures to deal with those types of snafus or deal with those types of errors. The big thing, if you're looking for GSOL, is an attention to detail and the ability to operate in basically almost solo at times, moving your jump freighter, moving your cargo rorqual, being able to figure out when and where to sino things, being able to recognize that a remote place in Bumblefuck Quirius isn't really safe to operate in at that point. Having the patience to just say, hey, you know what, I can't do this now, let's do it later. We have automated tools for the majority of our tasks. There's a timer board that you can grab a task to do things, whether it's fracking a public moon, going out and filling a Citadel's fuel blocks, going out and refilling a jump bridge with liquid ozone. Most of that stuff, the ability to recognize that the job needs to be done is automated. It's there's two main things for a GSOL member that make the difference. The ability to not burn yourself out. Don't do too much at once. Being able to spread your tasks out and being able to function at a steady pace is more important than really a burst of 200-300 tasks for 2 months and then you burn out and you stop. For the question of are there preferred recommended jump freighters and T2 transports, we use blockade runners. We use deep space transports. We carry fuel for every single jump freighter there is. Many people prefer the Rhea because the Rhea carries the most. Other people prefer the Ark because the fuel is cheapest here in Delve. I usually have both a Rhea and an Anshar because my main freighter pilot at the time was trained only in Galente. We don't really require specific skills other than it is a jump freighter of some sort. The other thing we use, especially when we're operating in places where it may be dangerous, is a combat fitted cargo rorqual. Basically, it's combat fit, except for the lows carry, cargo expanders.
Coming in the dash.
Heads up, guys. We may have a target coming through.
Yes,
And
Goombomb. You have to have
coalition,
your own jump freighter.
Only one covered up.
All right, copy that. Logo Lupo, you can go ahead and keep going. If he comes in, we'll shoot him. If not, we won't.
No problem. So yeah, basically we do provide SRP of a sort. It doesn't go through the standard thing. That's one of the questions usually when people provide their own ships. For example, we had somebody who lost a deep space transport the other day because they were operating in Bumblefuck Aquarius, which is the main reason why I brought that up. It happens. On a case-by-case basis, we will replace ships. We usually carry and have a stock of ship hulls just waiting for replacements in 4K, where we tend to operate out, or from 1DQ, or wherever it is that we're having the local cache for a place.
Lupa, there's a question about the fit for that cargo combat Rorqual. Is that something that you guys post publicly somewhere?
Let me check to see if it's on the wiki. There's several different variants, but let me just see here.
Well, he's looking for that. If you guys are looking in Fleet, you can see Goombomb's talking. This is an old trick. It's an old scouting trick. It works fantastically well. Left click anybody's name in local, hit Control and A, right? Then Control and A, and you will highlight the entire local list. Now, whenever anybody jumps into the system, they will not be highlighted, which makes them highlighted, which is just a weird thing. But it's an old scouting trick that we all have used forever.
Yeah, I put, there is a link. That's the base fit. Many of us have upgraded it in various ways, moving to, you should see Tuzzy's. Tuzzy has like A-type and bones and things like that. I usually use C-types, but a lot of us usually have one Rorqual, which we spend some money on to make it combat worthy, just to survive long enough so that we will yell and scream and say, hey, Coord, save us. Speaking of Coord.
That will jump out D-dash. Don't come T5.
All right, copy. So Lupa, when you guys are doing these kinds of pieces, do you? I know Tuzzy was talking about. I think he said on the Meta Show he's gotten deploying keep stars down to some crazy number, like 3 seconds or something. He can deploy them. Do you guys like practice that on Sissy or something, or how do you guys decide where in a system infrastructure is going to be and the orientations to them?
Most of the time, the structures, depending upon its purpose. Usually, if it's Fortizar or Keepstar, it's aimed towards the gate that it's on. There's an infamous example of the Keepstar and other structures that have been in ZXB. Normally, we coordinate with Jay and the others in the Sky team for where do they want the structure, which gate do they want the structure on, and make sure that we anchor it appropriately. John Hartley from Coord team usually has a very valid opinion or very valid request for placement of things. Jay is also the same way. It's we don't really practice it. It's more certain people do it because they have more experience. A lot of us, like Tuzzy. Tuzzy is the one that drops most of the keep stars because he's got a character in the holding corporation with director rights to set it up. Usually those structures are actually in DJ's retirement fund versus Goonwaffa for protective purposes and because they're strategic level assets. It's really important that we try to secure the number of people that can do things with structures. GSOL is very compartmentalized because of the level of trust that's required for our members. There's very few people with full rights to do most things with structures. Most people can only sit in them, gun them, fuel them, and see what's going on with them. So that's the other thing, and that's one of the things people have been talking about here about recruitment. GSOL is based on trust. If you are a trustworthy person, we do recruit usually by checking with leadership in other teams, leadership in other groups, for how trustworthy is a person. Have they been reliable? Have they been able to do things? Do they take direction well? It's really, we do technically have open recruitment, but the recruitment is based upon the recommendation of the people that know that player.
For those of you guys who didn't see it, Kathy just put a picture in there, and he mentioned this earlier, and he will actually be our next guest talking in about 15 minutes or so about the Pathfinders and what they're doing. But he wanted to do a kind of a little shout out to GSOL for their help setting up the structures and everything in the system that Pathfinders has basically taken lock, stock, and barrel, pretty much. I'm sure Kathy will come up with a much better way of saying it, but that's in there as well. For you guys, do you have any more questions for Lupo? I've got a couple more we can throw out, but we really want to hear from you guys. What do you kind of other questions do you have for our GSOLer?
That is true. I mean,
Yeah, that's very
there are
true.
things we keep going. We're the unspoken people behind things. But I'm going to mention something here real quick, based upon what they were talking about recruitment and buttering people up and being a yes man and basically looking for space important things. That's one of the things that I've noticed, and this is not necessarily GSOL, but this is something I've noticed being in the Imperium for quite a while. You hear many people trying to be space important, and those are the people that usually get commissar. Those are the people that never actually get what they're looking for. My story is typical of that. I wasn't looking to be a subdirector or even a director of GSOL. I was just doing the job, making sure that I got things done, treating it fun, getting things done, and building that level of trust, because that's all what it comes down to, the level of trust. I didn't even ask for any of the promotions I got. It was just by showing competency, by showing that you are self-motivated, by showing that you can be trusted or entrusted with levels of responsibility. And that goes for most of the SIGs and most of the organizations here that make up the Goons. It's very much a meritocracy. It's, can you get the job done without getting a swelled head?
I echo so much of that. It's the same for me. But there's a good question there for you, Lupo. It says, what does it feel like to have people point out and whine about the missing like a public moon frac when you guys do so much tremendous work on the other with everything else? I have my own answer to that, but I'm curious what yours is.
Gee, thank you, Delta, for that prearranged question there. Basically, what ends up happening here is that we laugh. We try to make sure that we get things done, but there are times where there are wider strategic concerns of getting things done. For example, one of the operations where we were taking care of things up north during one of the campaigns, we weren't going to get to some of the moons because our people were up doing the jobs that they needed to do to support the strategic objectives that we were doing. It happens. We try to make sure that we get things done, but we don't really. We have to prioritize. We have to triage the tasks at times, and things like moons and things like everything else will be lower priority than dropping a structure, 3,000 kilometers off of a keepstar so that we can tether our supers when we're going to try to kill that keepstar.
And it is a great question from Delta Wave. I do love that. There's a couple of answers there in Fleet. My answer to that, and I'm not in GSOL, my answer is get fucked, you scrub.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to be the nicer person that just says, I'm sorry, there's other priorities. We're going to get to that as quickly as we can. But that is the general opinion of, I'm sorry, your mining is not important to us. It's everything else. We'll get to that when we get to it. But that's the thing. I mean, it's all about, making sure that the system works and continues to work. Yes, you're a spod brain. The spod must flow.
So now I know you were here when I asked Brownstar this question, but speaking of mining and spod, what's your take on the changes to the mining anomalies? You know, is there going to be a change in the availability for GSOL? I mean, they haven't talked about changing ice availabilities, but I would assume that's on the horizon. Do you have any thoughts on that one?
Well, that's kind of one of the things that we're keeping an eye on. We try to see what's happening. We do look at what's happening with Sissy and Hobo Leaks and a bunch of the other things to see what's going on. We do try to keep a an ear to the ground to see where the trends are going. Mining really is becoming more and more an N+1 activity. Every single change to reduce the yield of anomalies, every single change to reduce the income only encourages those people who have lots of oracles to get more to maintain the level of their income. Some of these changes, while they appear to be functional, while they appear in the short term to address the what CCP wants to get accomplished, in the long term, we make this comment of this hurts the smaller groups rather than larger groups. Let's mention this. He hasn't been around for a long time for reasons, but Garrett Sniper is a prime example of somebody who really truly lived the N+1 philosophy, running 20, 30 workers, running 20, 30 carriers, running dozens and dozens and dozens of them. There was an incident up in when we were living in Delve where he lost like 30 carriers in a single day because he made some stupid mistakes. What did he do? He had 60 more built and was out the very next day going out and ratting in those carriers. So it's really, a lot of these changes really don't end up long-term doing what CCP intends. But we do keep an eye on things. Fuel blocks, if the fuel block prices change, we may need to go out and take a look at how many different structures we're supporting and maybe decommission some of the structures we no longer need. We do that every so often, like whenever we notice that there's a lot of structures that aren't being used, we take a look at it and say, do we really need to maintain this structure here? We do decommission structures quite often because there's no need to pay for fuel when nobody's really using it. So yeah, we are keeping an eye on it. We are seeing what's happening. We don't really hope for many changes in the ice because ice really is used everywhere, much more than necessarily in Delve. And we're just keeping an eye on things. Yeah, Zeruba, with the offlining of super capital, there were systems where there hadn't been a super capital built for 3-4 months. We're looking at it and saying each one of those is costing us 1.2 billion per month. If nobody's using them, why should we activate it? If there's a large group of people that are going to be building and continuously building, the Alliance will pay for it, especially if it's 2-3 people. But we've had some groups come to us and say, hey, you know what? I've got a single super producer who wants to produce things in these systems. If it's only one person, we'll go, hey, you know what? We can go ahead and turn it on, but to show the level of your commitment, we ask that you prepay for 2-3 months worth of the Alliance maintenance cost, just to show that yes, you're actually doing this. It's not just a one-time fad thing. So we've tried to take a look at things and rationalize our expenditures and ensure that we're spending the tax money generated by our members in the best way possible.
And I had a fancy question to ask you, and I totally just forgot it because I was pinged with a couple other things. Any more questions for Lupo? And hopefully I can string it out to actually remember what I was going to ask him. Well, I do want to point out I just updated the MOTD on the fleet there, so it's got the list of the next couple of speakers. And we've got all 6 anchorable bubbles out in space now. There is a T1 and a T2, small, medium, and large. You can see the differences in sizes for those. Goomba, that's not really a question, but it is a really good point. Alt cores are 15%. Mainline cores, that does vary a little bit. They're not all 15%. But your taxes go to fund everything that Lupo was just talking about, all of these fuels. If you guys have ever used a jump bridge, not a jump bridge, what do they call them now? The Anzablex jump gates, that is all from this tax stuff.
Right. I mean, there are some serious costs involved with running the alliance. I think the biggest two expenses is SRP and infrastructure costs. As I said, we go through about 2.5 million blocks a month. SRP goes from anywhere from like 150, 160 billion on up to about $1 trillion, depending upon if we've got some sort of a campaign. But that's really what the core of your tax goes to. And 15% is actually not that large. There's a lot of things that it just goes to, and we do try to make sure that we manage that income responsibly, because that's what it goes to, making your alliance run. That's an actually good question. Alphabet Soup, Zixies, or whatever you want to call. We don't care. We maintain a level of fuel in these structures that we can catch it before it becomes a big issue. We would prefer people not to, but we know goons are goons, and there's going to be goons that will try to save money however they can, even with very minimal fuel costs, and they'll go through Anzablex gates. It happens. We usually try to keep somewhere around 5 million liquid ozone in each gate, which supports, just a massive number of ships being able to go through without us even having anywhere near an issue. But that actually reminds me of something else. Is one of the things that we do get pinged about sometime is Anzablex gates up in Fountain. Not all organizations run themselves the same way. Our gates usually are fueled. We have automated tools to keep an eye on the fuel levels. But if you do encounter a gate and that's not working, go ahead and double check to make sure that it is a Goonwafa one versus an initiative or Bastion or whomever might be operating in that area. We can go ahead and direct them to do, to go ahead and fuel it. I've had other people mention that they go ahead and drop liquid ozone in gates. We appreciate it, but it's not required. We do maintain a large stock of liquid ozone for wherever we need to put it.
Here's a softball question for you, Lupo, but I want to put it out there for them. Lupo, so does that mess up your guys' sheets on refueling frequency if we open it and dump fuel in there for the gates?
No, because we actually do it through ESI. We actually have a. That's another thing. One of the groups, I don't know if they're actually going to be talking about, is GARPA. There is a set of volunteer developers who take what they know from their real life jobs and their real life hobbies and their real life passions and the tools necessary for everybody to do all of the different work. That GARPA, the top GARPA topographical tool, Boris running, building up some of the other tools. That is one of the biggest things that should be mentioned. They're the people who are even less noticed than GSOL. They are the people that make what we accomplish possible. So my appreciation goes out to the group of people who provide our infrastructure support and our IT support. And that reminds me, somebody else mentioned, Goombomb mentioned something like that. We do set the price for the jump gates so that there is enough. You may have noticed that there's a big difference in the price between the jump gates here in Delve versus the jump gates in Fountain. We do price things. If we see usage of those gates going up because of capitals and everything else, it's very easy to adjust it. We try to make sure that the pricing we put per liquid ozone is more than enough to support the resupply and discourage the people putting everything through that doesn't need to go through.
We've got some couple people talking about moving freighters and everything like that. This is my personal opinion, guys. You should be, if you got a freighter, for the love of God, don't gate it. Find a Titan and goon cannon it somewhere. Even using a jump gate you're just going to get your freighter killed. Goon cannon it everywhere you want to go.
Yes, use a goon cannon. You can use a Venture or any industrial to light the Sino for your destination. Always light a Sino within tether range of the structure so that you can dock up immediately. Please remember, if you're moving a Rorqual, that you cannot dock it in a small Athanor or an Astrahus. Just be aware of the sizes of the structures you're Sinoing to, but this is definitely something you do need to be aware of. Use a goon cannon. Join Theta if you don't have a lot of friends. Ask people in your corp. Join Theta, be active in there, and say, hey, does anybody have an opportunity, or can somebody go ahead and bridge me somewhere? Don't take gates. I don't recommend taking even Ansiblexes, just like was mentioned by Ranger. It's too dangerous, especially in systems like 1DQ.
Gumam, the Falcon is the most common one used by the Recon guys. I'll just leave it at that. It's the primary one that the Recon guys use. Other groups may use something different, but the Falcons are the ones that we use there.
The other thing to remember too is Falcons are for any ship. Just bridging a freighter, you can go to an industrial Sino, and that's a much cheaper option.
Okay, we're almost out of our time with Lupo. Does anybody have any more questions for our GSOLer? Hello, Kathy, are you back around?
I am. You guys hear me, yeah?
Yeah.
Hey, Kathy.
Yes.
Okay, so Lupo, thank you so much for coming out. We're gonna get rid of you now, and we're gonna make a change over to Kathy Iron. He's gonna be talking about Pathfinders, all the stuff that they do. I will link their recruiting thread in Fleet here in just a second, but Kathy, please take it away.
What's going on, gents? So, I actually kind of agonized over this. I'm just going to kind of give like a brief back history on Pathfinders and kind of go from there with questions and whatnot. But we started off almost 5 years ago in Declan. I was running PvE fleets and got contacted to try and set up something that apparently has been tried 3 or 4 times before, which was to use wormholes for strategic use. And see if we could actually get it to interface with Coord, ops, and all that kind of stuff to move people through wormhole space reliably to all of our enemies' locations. And turns out it has worked. So now we got our own system, which is, I should say our own internal system, which is the Pathfinder app. And we use that to track all of our wormhole additions, and then to pass that information on to the folks that need it. That's pretty much our main focus. We do everything else on the side as kind of like an addition to. So we do like the PvE stuff in wormholes. We also teach like abyssal stuff. We teach people how to do exploration stuff. Thanks, Kumbam. And then we do our small gang shenanigans that we do on Friday nights, and sometimes more. And then as of late, we're currently deployed into wormhole space doing shenanigans with the inhabitants wormhole space. It's been pretty quiet because of Christmas, but we've already gotten a lot of pokes to say, hey, you guys want to fight? So like we're actually expecting to spool up pretty well. But the general gist of it is we find wormholes, and we find ones that are viable for alliance use for moving fleets. We pass that information on. Those folks make a decision whether or not to use those wormholes, use them, kind of get behind the enemy, or just save everybody a shitload of time. Which is kind of my biggest thing really is time, right? So if we can get a fleet of 200 people to an area where they need to be and cut back 45 minutes of your time so that you're there quickly and you're having fun immediately, then I guess our guys have done their jobs. It is really that simple.
So here's one because I know you're involved with this because you and I did it. But in the lead up, you came to me and we created the wormhole classes. Like how far in advance were you planning this with your guys to move in there and do all that? Yeah.
So we actually lived in this wormhole previously. Somebody moved in when we left because we don't really stay in wormhole space like this. We're based out of a delve pretty much. So when we're doing stuff like this, like a deployment, we'll move in, we'll do our thing, and then when we're done, we'll move out. But we were planning for probably about 2 months consistently, whether it was helping set up the class stuff or get all the stuff in place for the logistics, which GSOL, bless their souls, helped out a lot with that. Like the infrastructure that's in our wormhole currently is GSOL stuff, fuel blocks, everything. It's all them. We had to evict people out of here to get our wormhole back, but historically this wormhole has been with Goonswarm for probably about 4 years.
So for those of us who are not in Pathfinders, the app piece, I know Lizzie has a really good video on it. You've got several people who've made good videos for them. One thing, shameless plug, guys, we will be doing the wormhole classes again after the first of the year. I gave my instructors about 2 weeks off. Those are going to be coming again here soon. So look on the op calendar. We will get more of those going. That Pathfinders app, what do you guys really do with that? Is that, like you mentioned it earlier, but what's...
I'm actually pulling up the video right now. Give me like 2 seconds. That's probably the best way to explain it. The Pathfinder app, we came up with a way. So when I was first starting this whole thing up, there was no blueprint for this. There was no like, this is how you do this thing. So I had to come up with a way to make it work. And there was a bunch of different ideas that everybody had, whether it was like Tripwire or Siggy. But the issue with those is that they are scraped by other alliances and used for their own devices, their own shady shenanigans, right? But the luck, as luck would have it, there was a guy that was in Germany that was developing his own app, which was Pathfinder app. And no, there is no coincidence. There's a coincidence, but I did not name the SIG after the app or vice versa. But we contacted him and we said, hey, you have this as open source. Do you mind if we make our own fork? And he was like, yeah, no problem. And we're like, hey, we'll help you out with bug stuff or recommendations or whatever. And he was very appreciative of that. So speaking again of the guys, the IT guys, we have our own IT guy, Nimblar, who maintains it and updates it and tweaks it to what we need. And that is how we did you link the video? You did link the video. Awesome. So the way we use it is our guys get tracked, and there's when they're moving through wormhole space, it populates on the map and they have to input certain things. And that allows the app to say this is a good connection, and then that good connection, if it's viable, is given to folks that need it.
God bless Nimblar.
Oh yeah, he loves the app. It's tough to work with, again, because the guy that originally created it, does it in his spare time. So it's something that he's putting together, and not just us, obviously, but all of wormhole space that's utilizing it. Not everybody uses it, obviously, but a lot of folks are already using it. Have all these different demands, and they say, "Hey, we need this, that, and the other thing," or this could be more streamlined. This could use less memory or whatever. and we've really put it through its paces and tweaked it to be able to be used by a much larger group of people. So it's not as blingy, because the public version is way cooler looking, but ours is more functional in a lot of ways. So you link that video, and then so the other thing that we teach is we teach folks how to scan wormholes, understand what wormholes are when it comes to what are you looking at, like what is a wormhole in essence. There's a video right there that I just put in Fleet of one of our he is our top scanner. The guy's he's ridiculous, but he has been able to almost weaponize scanning. I think the highest he scanned in 1 month was 1,500 wormholes, most of which were used by the Alliance in one way, shape, or form throughout that month. But his techniques are phenomenal.
I want to step in just one real quick thing. Guys, if you've been on a fleet and you've had your FC say, okay, we're going to go to, blah, blah, blah system and take a wormhole, odds are pretty good one of the Pathfinders guys scan that down. The FCs usually are not out scanning wormholes. A Pathfinders guy found that, and the FCs have access to the Pathfinders route. So keep that in mind when you're using those wormholes to move around. One of the Pathfinders guys probably, or girls, there's a couple of women in that SIG too. One of our Pathfinders found that for y'all.
I just linked the 1 second. So recently, because of the deployment, the Into the Breach deployment, I've been teaching people how to kind of apply all this knowledge. And the video that I linked there, the Twitch video, was a live stream I did where I explained kind of how it all interconnects and how you're supposed to do it, like what the process is. But one of the big things too that outside of Pathfinders, if you want to think of it as like Pathfinders is like its own little entity off in the corner, we also were instrumental in getting the majority of the population of Goonswarm in Delve and Quirius and Fountain to understand that wormholes exist, how to scan them down, and also how to roll them for safety reasons, because we decided to take a defensive posture with wormholes in Delve to say that our crabbing shenanigans is more important than the ability to leave directly from Delve to wherever we got to go. So we pretty much scan the periphery of Delve for wormholes, and we push people through those wormholes instead. So kind of like we keep the tunnels away. we don't let nerds come into our area without us at least knowing about it. Because sometimes you won't roll the holes. I've heard decisions being made like this, like when I was just sneakily in a channel, where they say, hey, let's leave the hole open so they come out so we can fight them, right? But at least people will understand that the holes exist. Believe it or not, prior to Pathfinders, it wasn't a thing. People would just see a group in Delve and be like, oh, maybe there's a wormhole somewhere, but they wouldn't scan it down. They wouldn't decide to roll it if it was a critical problem, etc. So we kind of fundamentally changed the culture of Goonswarm towards wormholes, and it's kind of paid dividends in the long run.
And guys, we do have a wormhole rolling class that will again be coming up after the first of the year. We've had a lot of fun with that. Hawthorne's been running it with me. We've stranded a lot of people in the middle of freaking nowhere on Sissy. We always do that class on Sissy. But we've had people end up all over the place. So if you want to learn how to do that, we will be doing those again here in the not too distant future.
So does anybody have any questions for me? I mean, I can continue to blab, but questions are welcome.
Please kill the rats.
If I got denied because I think I applied too soon, can I reapply? Yes. So the minimum requirements, I'm just going to go and explain this because it is quite the point of contention in some cases where people get angry because I didn't let them in, or because they did something and they don't know that they did something wrong and I didn't let them in, or maybe it's a time thing. So you got to have a month in Goonswarm before you apply. Has to cut down just at least a little bit on the spy shenanigans, but it's kind of is what it is. But I'm looking for a certain type of human being to do this kind of stuff. Most people don't like to do what we do. or they think they do, and they join and they burn out very quickly. So I'm looking for certain type of I don't know, almost psychological profile. For firstly, people that enjoy doing exploration is a primary money-making source, or even abyssals, because you can do it anywhere. Nomadic, right? It's very important. If you're a staunch crab that's rooted in Rorquals and Ishtars and stuff like that, it's probably not your thing. But if it's something you want to try out, just know that it's a much more nomadic lifestyle. I've been all over the galaxy in the last month. I've been literally pretty much every single region in space. So you're not spending time, with your Rorquals unless maybe you get an alt or something. But the desire to scan and be accurate with what we're doing and how we bookmark things and do all this. There's all this detail-oriented stuff. If that's something that gets your EPing hard, then that's what we do. That's our thing. So it's really laid back, but it's also a group of people that I found out last year, actually, that the majority of the people that are in Pathfinders, in some way, shape, or form, are programmers, or in some cases, game devs. And all these guys that they love the details. They love the intricacy of doing this stuff. That's kind of the folks that join and stay. One of the guys that one of our top scanners, again, he's not the CEO, but he's like on the board of directors for a multi-billion-dollar construction company. Like I don't know what it is, but it's all these detail-oriented folks that consistently stay and have remained with us for years. But the application process, there's two things. That's what everybody gets wrong. There's two things, and it's in the application post that Ranger posted earlier, that they have to do, that you have to do. And once you join, in order to stay, you have to scan a minimum amount of wormholes per month. And you have to do it accurately, because what will happen is you'll see people that are doing it incorrectly, and we'll attempt to contact them and tell them, hey, you got to do this, that, and the other thing. And if it becomes a point of contention, then they go. I've only actually kicked like 6 people directly from the SIG in the entire time I've had the SIG up and running. So for the most part, it's just we teach, you learn, and you become proficient at it. It's a lot of fun. Allies are absolutely welcome. Matter of fact, our top scanner, which is Louis Grable, he came from Bastion, ended up joining Karma Fleet, not via poaching, promise. And just that's what he's done the entire time he's played Eve, is just scan. He enjoys that one singular aspect of playing this game. That's all he does. And we have a bunch of lawn guys. We tons of groups, not just main groups.
You can see a dashboard in Scoot, please.
All right, thanks.
So does anybody else have any other questions for me? Was I not verbose enough, Ranger?
17 in 1 B-Tash now.
Yeah, we got him. Thanks, man.
So, okay, we got questions coming up. What's the best wormhole explo ship? Exploration is actually the Stiletto. And that's not something most people hear, I guess. I'll link the fit. It requires perfect skills and is you can replace the Zugma, but there's the fit there. That is the god tier. That is the best ship. The T3 cruisers are the best scanning ships. Asteros are good. The covert ops frigates are good. But when it comes to never getting caught, it's the T3 cruiser and the Stiletto. The T3 cruiser, pick one, obviously. Yeah, like the Tengu. But the Stiletto is the best exploration ship. We had a guy that made almost casually $3.5 billion in one weekend just doing exploration with the Stiletto, and it runs through gate camps, smart bombing gate camps. I think our current record is 6 battleships. So we keep track of that because it's hilarious. But that's the Jesus right there. It's the Stiletto. Yeah. So you're mentioning drifter holes. Drifter holes are not as viable as they used to be because of the nerfs to the boosters. They're still outstanding for smaller groups, but it's not the same because you have to boosh. I think it's only like 25 ships per boosh now. So if you have a larger fleet, then you can have some issues with making sure that everybody gets into the wormhole before the drifter punches you in the face. But a lot of other groups. So here's another. If you want to talk about like from a like I know my enemy kind of thing. We're the only group currently that I know of, because spies everywhere, that are have an organized group the way we have it, that are paying people monthly, sustainably paying people monthly, and are and have a certain specific set of guidelines and doctrines and all this other stuff for how we do business. The wormhole usage for the drifter holes, other groups are using them like crazy, but they're not as viable for what Goonswarm needs. So it's almost like program management. We're trying to match the need to what we're giving them. Like they say, hey, we need this, and we say, okay, this is what you can use. This is what you should use. And it's been a topic of discussion for every single year that Pathfinders has been up and running, and we're constantly refining the process. All right, if someone thinks that this SIG might be a good fit, what are some things that they should try out to see if they like it? Various exploration objectives. I would say, yeah, go out and do exploration. Go out and do, relic and data sites. Relic is a priority over data. Go learn about how wormholes work. Poke your head into wormholes. Part of doing wormhole stuff is intel analysis. Sorry. So you go into wormhole, and we don't care. Like, yes, the passage through the wormhole and its connection and what type of wormhole it is. All that stuff's very important, but also knowing who lives there, what they're doing, are they active, who they interface with. You basically go down a rabbit hole every single time you enter a wormhole. Like where we're living right now in wormhole space, every time we roll our C5, we go next door and we see who lives there, who they're fighting with. Are they active? Are they ratting? Are they more PvP oriented? We basically build a profile, an intel profile of the groups that we interact with on a regular basis. So it's not just that's extrapolating way out there, but that's something that we do at least while on the deployment. But if we're looking for a certain group or certain groups in wormhole space, that's how we're doing it. We're doing it through literally intel. We're going on Zkill, we're going to the Anoikis website, if somebody wants to link that. But it's the idea that getting and gaining knowledge and using it precisely makes you, happy. That's Pathfinders in a nutshell. There's the Anoikis website. Anoikis is instrumental to a lot of wormhole groups across New Eden.
It's a great website. If you're interested in wormhole stuff and you're not familiar with the Anoikis site, really after Pathfinders, I would put Anoikis right there. You should learn how to use that site. Absolutely.
The weekend class, so it all comes back around. Ranger is teaching classes on a regular basis. So we built a basic set of like, this is what a class should look like, and then Ranger's team tweaked that into a Gooniversity class structure. So those classes, when you see those come up, go to them and learn from him. The folks that are around Pathfinders on a regular basis are constantly learning and refining and all that kind of stuff. I used to teach classes on a regular basis, but combined with director duties, SIG shenanigans, and then all the other stuff that I'm doing in EVE with Pathfinders, plus teaching classes and leading roams and blah, 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 blah. I was starting to get to the burnout point. So I've been trying to pass off some of that stuff so I don't turn into a smoking, wreck.
Crazy
basically.
Vegetable.
Yeah.
Garius, we usually don't do the classes on the weekends for the really simple reason that especially Saturday, there's a ton of stuff going on. There's the fireside, there's the meta show, SNS does a lot of stuff. Sundays, there's a lot of locust fleets going on. It's not every Sunday, but basically when we do them, we do a EU and a US TZ class, and they're always done the same day. A lot of times it's Friday, but do keep an eye out for those. So we will be doing those again. I promise they're coming, not next week, but probably the week after that. You'll see them again.
I relinked the videos so that I linked the wrong name. Apologies. I'm talking to you, Gary's. But those 3 videos right there, if you want to learn something, watch those 3 videos.
Kathy, do you have the rule of 6 video in that one?
I was looking that up right. That's so funny. Give me 1 second.
So for you guys doing exploration that was asked earlier, and I forgot to prompt. So
Thank
the
you,
rule of
Zizzy.
6.
There we go.
Yeah, so you just put it in there for you. That video is great. It's very short. It's like 3 or 4 minutes long. It will probably triple or your efficiency of hacking things, whether you're hacking a citadel or the exploration cans. The mechanic is the same. Watch that video. He does a really great job on working through how to do it, and it's really impressive. You will be by far better at it.
I highly recommend explore if you're new to this game, and especially like you got the low amount of money in the bank, and you're like, man, how do I fucking make money in this game? The fastest way to make, and this is for the record, this is why if you see Koreans running around like the Korean characters in their name and whatnot, the Korean characters, the new ones that have been coming over recently, have been told, hey, like exploration is your way to make money right off the bat, and it's true. So it doesn't just teach you how to do exploration as a money making mechanic. It also teaches you game mechanics. It teaches you how to find things. It teaches you how to descan. It teaches you how to pay attention. It teaches you attention to detail basically, and it teaches you how to but by way of trying to be safe, it teaches you how to actually look up people in local and figure out who they're flying with, what type of fits they generally use, what they're generally doing. If the guy that's in system with you while you're trying to run a site, is he a guy that likes to hunt explorers? It teaches you all that kind of stuff. Can new players and alphas do it? Boy, I just answered that question, but yes, absolutely. So here, I'll link you a fit that is much, much cheaper than that stiletto I linked earlier. And there's a couple of different versions here. So we got the 2 Bling Year versions, which is my Dishonor fits, and then you got the Tech 1 version. Those 3 right there. The Dishonor T1 is pretty good, and when it comes to most people don't know this, but the Astero has a flat 37.5% bonus to like scanning and whatnot. Like the Covert Ops kind of does. The Covert Ops has a 10% bonus per skill level to the same thing. So if you're at Covert Ops 4, you're outstripping the Astero's skill abilities. So you'd actually want to be running a Covert Ops frigate. We have all those fits in the Pathfinder section of the forums. Like if you join Pathfinders, you'll get access to the fits, and you can take a look at that stuff and fly what's appropriate for your skill level and your financial level as well.
One thing I want to point out, because I forgot to do it, and I will link this for you guys. To get in on the Pathfinders deployment right now, you don't need to join Pathfinders. There's an auto accept auth group. Let me get that link for you guys here. And you can get into not the full Pathfinders thing, but there's a little subset, and of course Ziggy for the win. Go in there, auto accept. It takes just a couple of seconds in there, and you will get access to the, what do you guys call it, schoolhouse, I think, section, and there's a whole bunch of fits in there for you guys. Kathy and all of his guys, Oddthorn, all of them put a tremendous amount of work into it. It's a ton of reading, where there are dozens of fits in there for you guys.
And we tried to simplify it as much as possible, but you can only condense it down so much. The way I look at it is at the end of this deployment, and I've told my guys this a ton of times, at the end of this deployment, I want at least a decent cross-section of people that are active, in Delve, and in general in Goonswarm, to have a basic working knowledge of wormholes and how to utilize them and how to interact with what's inside of them, so that they can pass that information on to other folks and say, oh, here, here's this, here's that. So like that culture, if you will, of knowing or having it be part of our culture, so that everybody in Goonswarm in some way, shape, or form understands what wormholes are, how they're utilized, and what's present inside of them, and how to get rid of them if you need to get rid of them in Delve. all that stuff gets passed on so that it's part of our, what we are as goons. That's kind of where we're going with this deployment. And in the meantime, we're getting fights, we're going out, we're doing stuff. The holidays have been kind of quiet just because, holidays. But things are set to ramp up. We've been getting combos via our Diplos saying that there's a lot of wormhole groups out there that want to, brawl it up. So that should be pretty awesome. We use a wide variety of shenanigans, but our top tier stuff is like Lashaks. And if you ever wanted to fly a Lashak, now's the time to do it because it is, for the duration of deployment, SRP-able. So just something to think about. Like fully SRP, not shit stack.
One thing, speaking of getting rid of wormholes, GSOL would like to mention, the next person that asks us to install the quantum flux generators to generate more wormholes in Delve can go get fucked. Thank you. That's all.
Oh, on that note, it's funny you bring that up. So who was it that lived when we were living in Declan? Those of you that remember, who was it that lived in Branch? It was that French
FA?
FCON. It was FCON.
FCON, yeah.
Okay, so FCON installed those wormhole generators in almost every single one of their systems they could install it in. They also then complained that Hard Knocks and friends, at the time when Hard Knocks was extremely strong and extremely active, were constantly coming in there and killing a lot of their stuff. So it's not a smart idea to have those installed anywhere in a region where you're trying to be defensible, especially when that's your primary money-making region, right? And when they decided to move, remember when FCON left and we were getting kicked out and everybody was trying to move all their stuff? They were using those wormholes to come in and kill tons of FCON supers. So it's like basically building a wall and then punching a bunch of holes in it and going, this is fine, everything's fine.
Yeah, if Declan was when I first started figuring out how to roll wormholes, I was one of the few people getting it up there, and once you've got it down to a science, I don't know many people realize that there's actually mathematics involved, that you can figure it out exactly what you need to do to roll a wormhole and never get caught on the wrong side.
I have a thing for that. I'm going to link it as soon as I find it. Eventually.
And when Kathy links it, as Lupo said, come to the class. We will teach you how to do that. There is in fact math, and it's more or less spelled out. It's pretty easy math too. I would call it arithmetic rather than math because it's just subtracting a couple of numbers.
It's pretty basic math, yeah.
Cayenne, I don't know yet where I'm going to post it. There will for sure be a link on the forums. I haven't decided yet. But yeah, on the forums in the Gooniversity, there will be a link, and in the War Room thread where we announce this class, there'll be a link in there as well. Once we get them all done and we figure out where we're going to put these, I just haven't decided where that is yet.
I just linked both of the. We literally have like a visual, waterfall chart, and that's what that looks like. And understand something too, for those of you that are going to take this and try to apply this somewhere, every single wormhole type is different. So it's kind of turning into a class, but I just want to make sure that people aren't rolling their stuff out. Let me link that so you guys understand how that works, because that could be a problem. So save that link I just put in there. The two things above that I put in there, those are for specific types of wormholes. And wormhole attributes, every single type of different wormhole that exists has a different set of potentially of max pass-through, and then also wormhole total mass. So you're rolling based on the wormhole type. So K162 is not a wormhole type. You're rolling based on the other side of the K162, which is the entrance side.
And unfortunately, I'm going to kick Kathy out now because we're going to bring our Recon guys in. We've got Delta and Bro Dog. So we've got two Recon guys who are going to talk to us about what Recon does. So thank you to Kathy for coming in and talking to us about all the Pathfinders stuff. And I hope you guys are enjoying the class. We've got a lot more talk still going. Believe it or not, we're going to be running till about 0200 today, tonight, this morning, wherever in the world you are. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Delta and or Brodog, and I will get you guys the scouting recruit link here in just a second. So please take it away.
Hi. How's it going, everyone?
Hey guys.
So, we're actually going to start with the scouting portion. Ranger will be putting the link in there in a moment, unless I beat him to it.
Wow.
Dang! All right, he beat me by 1 second. So,
You're always slow, Delta, so that's not new. No news.
Yeah, thanks, Apple.
You're welcome.
So, scouting. There's a variety of different things that are meant when someone talks a lot about scouting. Sometimes they're talking about fleet scouting. Sometimes they're talking about enemy staging scouting. They're talking about this. They're talking about that. But we have a group called Allied Scouts. By its name, it's obvious that it is not just Goonswarm. It is allies as well. We have skirmish commanders in there. We have Allied FCs in there. We have our mainline FCs in there. We have all the coordinators in there. There's an awful lot of people in Scouts. And what they do primarily is we are working on keeping eyes on enemy stagers, enemy fleets, and reporting that info most often into a big black box where the person who's doing the scouting doesn't even know if the intel has been acted upon. Now, that's one of the requirements for scouting, is that you don't have to want to hear your name spoken all the time, because more often than not, just like GSOL doesn't get the limelight, Scouts don't necessarily get the limelight either. And that's entirely okay, because if you enjoy making sure that the info is out there and you trust that your FCs and the Recon members that are parsing that info are getting the info from one place to another and making wise decisions or unwise decisions at times. Sometimes we'll get a big fleet and decide, you know what, we're going to try. And the scout might even say that's bigger than we can handle. That's not the scout's call. That'll be the FC's call as to whether they have fun with it or not. But as long as you're okay with that info going into a bit of a black hole, then scouting might be for you, especially the staging scouting. We are always in need of people who have 500 billion scouts, and they don't mind having them logged in or logged off at enemy stager points all throughout the universe. That is not for everyone. Some people only have a couple of accounts, and those people more often are interested in doing active scouting, where they join a fleet and they be either +1 or they -1, trying to either herd their fleet from the standpoint of who got left behind, or trying to lead the fleet and see where they're going. Depending on the op, the forward scout is not always open to just anyone, because if our destination has any level of security to it, then we can't just let anyone know where we're going, because that information gets out quite quickly. However, there are plenty of ops that are very much not OPSEC, and we allow just pretty much anyone to do the +1 and see, is there a bubble on the out gate, things like that. So there's a couple of requirements for scouts. If you look in the recruiting thread, the sense of curiosity, willingness to throw the information into the black hole, and time. In return, you can be papped. You'll join fleets as active eyes, and you get paps. That's always nice. And the satisfaction that you've done well to help the Imperium with its goals. And the instructions on how to get in: you have to have been a part of the Imperium for at least a month, show some level of alliance activity, that's strategic PAPs, something not 0, which if you have 0, it's kind of impressive. If our stats go back 90 days, so if you have 0 participation in 90 days, then chances are you're probably not actively playing yet. So we'll wait for you to spin up a little more. We do not ban people from Scouts very often. More often than not, we will let you, if you apply and you get denied, wait until you've met the requirements and apply again. We don't hold grudges when it comes to that. I see a number of things scrolling through here.
Is there anything I need to respond to immediately? What have you been saying, Brodog?
Oh, guys, kill that flycatcher. Kill him, kill him, kill him.
Kill the flycatcher.
Quickly, while Delta's drawn breath for a second. I just wanted to speak about like some of the actual in-game.
You wore on it.
Yeah, you were only, guys.
Never mind, you've got it, guys.
Go ahead, Brodog. He's down.
Awesome. Yeah, so
leave that killing to local because fuck that guy.
Yeah, so some of the like actual requirements of doing scouting, I saw a little bit of chatter about using alphas. So alphas aren't like the best thing to do this with, and it's because you can't cloak, right? Most of the time, being able to cloak on like a staging grid, and be able to sit there without being attacked, getting your intel is preferred. But you can technically do it with alphas. I've seen people, put frigates together that just go really fast in the same direction, and nothing can catch them. So they just continue to get their scouting information that way. But it's as simple as starting up a character, getting 1 to 2 million SP into an interceptor, throw it together with insta-warping capabilities, micro-warp drive, and a cloak. And there's your basic that's your basic requirements to be able to scout. At least at the hostile staging level, which as we were talking is primarily the biggest use of our scouts, is having eyes on our enemies when they're forming fleets, where their fleets go, and what they're doing. Anyway, I'll pass it back off, and continue to drop your questions in the fleet chat, and I'll pick them up as Delta continues.
Okay. And I'll try to breathe. So that kind of covers scouts primarily, and there's a lot to that. If you're interested in it, please let us know. We process the applications on a semi-regular basis. I processed them about 20 minutes ago. So if you were one of the pending people, you have been processed, either rejected or accepted. But yeah, that's handled every once in a while. We do need scouts for all time zones, of course. That's one of the challenges we have is especially during those deep Australian time zones or something like that, where we have a harder time getting numbers. We have a hard time getting scouts as well. We will do recruitment drives at times just to keep people aware that scouts is a thing, but we also we are open for business all times of the year. We do not only have recruitment drives. Now, yes, we always need more scouts. So the other portion, or what I'm actually a director of, and Brodog is also a director of, is Recon. And Recon, you might be amused to know, doesn't even have a recruitment thread. It was enough out of date that it has been hidden, and I don't seem to find one that is not out of date. Now, that might seem like an oversight, but it's not particularly, because like Coord, Recon is not an open sig. It is not always recruiting. It is also a heavy vouch area and or what they call a CI checked area, meaning that a lot of things. Oh, did someone find an old thread?
No, that's just a regular recruiting thing.
Oh, okay. Anyway, the Recon department handles a lot of sensitive information, and the Recon department's job, there's a variety of them, but one of them is to handle the scouts. And so the pings to scouts more often than not are from either a coordinator or a Recon member that is asking for staging eyes in a particular location. Recon also has the honor of lighting sinos that aren't going to get you killed, hopefully, unless it's on a hostile grid, and then you might die, but that's okay. That was the point in that case. But strategic sinos, moving our cap fleets around, things like that. arranging for scouts, helping out with Intosis, which is very, very heavy in just logistics, making sure that people are sorted into particular places. You probably have interacted with Recon most if you've gone on Intosis, defensive Intosis fleets in Quarius. We tend to actually have to talk at that point. Recon members don't all want to be FCs. In fact, most don't want to be FCs, but we have a few, like interrupting Apple before, and Soth. But they do quite often also like to operate in the background. But sometimes we have to speak up and just say, okay, here, people have been assigned. If you have any questions, if you're not Condi and you're trying to hack, we're going to shoot you. Things like that when it comes to Intosis. So there are a lot of times that Recon might be exposed a little bit from that standpoint. But sure. Why don't you go ahead and talk about the intel gathering side of things right now, Brodog?
Yeah, perfect timing. So, not all of what we do actually gets to see the daylight, so to speak. As Delta's been talking about, we do work a hell of a lot with our fleets, our FCs, and primarily actually with our scouts, which is kind of like our baby organization that we run and manage. But there's a huge part of the recon department that a lot of people don't see and never really get to fully appreciate, and that's our intel gathering. Whenever you go out and shoot a structure, whenever you are going along and fracking a moon, Recon has had a part in gathering the information that goes into our massive databases to basically store and host that information until it becomes relative to be able to be used. We put in countless hours into making sure that everything is up to date, and something like the moon shuffle that a lot of you may not even be aware of. A couple of years back, CCP decided to reshuffle our moons in the entire game. And within under, I think it was 48 hours, I believe, the recon department, along with scouts, had scanned something. What was it, like 16,000 moons?
Yeah, it was thousands.
Yeah, it was like 16,000 moons in a matter of 48 hours, which is just an unbelievable feat, in my
crashed
opinion.
Google Sheets multiple times.
But yeah, it's something that we don't normally get to touch on very often. The fact that there is a hell of a lot of man hours that does go into what Recon do behind the scenes, and that information that we're able to provide is able, basically is one of the foundations to even going to war. If you don't know what your enemies have, you don't know what to go after, and it's normally up to us to go along and have that information ready for our FCs and coordinators for when they want to call the shot and go, you know what, this is the target we want to go after next.
There was some interesting times during the glassing of Tribute that kill mails for big things like Satoyos and Tataras and things like that had expensive rigs. Their kill mails didn't have expensive rigs because certain enemies really, really like their kill boards, and they're afraid to let their kill boards have what actually died on it. And they actually ripped the rigs off of some of their structures, destroying them, so that the satisfaction of the kill mail wouldn't be there. However, we already had scans of the structures, so we knew exactly what was destroyed, and that was a lot of fun, kind of being able to put the So Zkill says that this much was destroyed, but if you calculate in using X, Y, and Z, here's what actually was destroyed, and that's because of a lot of the work that the Recon line was able to do ahead of time, zipping through Tribute and such, and scanning and recording and trying to keep it all organized.
Yeah, that's nice. Cryptic said they ripped up over $1 trillion skin regs, which is just an absurd amount, in my opinion.
It's crazy. So I think we've hit the quick level. Given a half an hour, every department could talk for a long time if they wanted to, because most of us do our various jobs because we enjoy them. We enjoy doing this. It is, as Lupo said earlier, mostly a meritocracy in Goonswarm, meaning when you do good work, you get punished and you get promoted, and now you have more good work to do. And it's sometimes that's a lot of fun. Sometimes it's a little bit like, oh, oops. But yeah, do you guys have any particular questions to studying or recon, or want to know Brodog's favorite drink? I don't know.
So, some form of alcohol, of course. While you guys are asking, one thing I think we touched on a little bit, but recruitment with Recon. Basically, Delta was talking about it being a relatively closed group with Recon, and the reason behind that is again due to the security, right? Recon is privy to a hell of a lot of information that can't get into the wrong hands, and making sure that we're not inviting spies and stuff like that into our organization. We have a fairly lengthy process, and you know, a lot of you may here today think, well, Scouts doesn't sound that interesting, but Recon does. Scouts is the way into Recon for the most part. There are some exceptions, but for the most part, we look to our Scouts that have been working hard, doing their jobs, and those are normally our top candidates when we are thinking about getting new Recon members. So if that gives any more incentive to join Scouts, as we said earlier, we desperately need Scouts in all time zones, as much redundancy as possible. I would not care if we had 5-10 Scouts all reporting the same information. It's all valuable, it's all important, and yeah, join Scouts.
Yep. Apple did mention one other side that Recon has is we are Coord and sometimes FC's favorite people, because most of us have trained locator characters. A locator character has a certain level of standing with a given faction in HighSec, and we have dedicated alts that just sit in stations or have a route planned of stations they can fly to and fro from, and run locates on characters, which within 4 or 5 or 6 minutes tells you where a person, a character is if they're in known space. If they're in wormhole space, it kicks back an error, which is also information in and of itself. So Recon also has the fun job of, okay, where did this enemy FC? They've disappeared off the face of the earth. Where have they gone to? And Recon will run locates and try to do rolling locates at times to keep track of an enemy if we don't actually have eyes on grid following them. So just another little thing we get to play with. And anyone can make a locator character. That's actually, that's open for anyone. Just costs you some money from or some ISK from tags if you're not willing to do mission running, until your eyes bleed.
That's one of the benefits of having good Scouts, because they can identify the FCs ahead of time.
That too. Alphas can do a certain level of locate. I think it's limited. Yeah, it's limited to level 3, which, depending on where you are, it takes longer. And I don't. I'm trying to remember if the range is exactly the same or not. So I'm not positive on that one.
Same range. Same range. Just takes longer.
Technically, it costs more too.
No.
Yeah.
8 minutes. Well, okay, it takes 4 minutes, I believe.
So the best, in my opinion, the best locators are the level 4 agents. you can get your answer in, I think it's 4 minutes. And I
Mhm.
don't believe there are any level 5 locators.
There are.
Okay, so there are level 5 locators. Do you know how long they take, Cryptic?
2 minutes, but they have a much longer recycle time on them, so they're not that useful unless you need something super fast.
So these are agents for you guys who don't know. So we don't have any of them in Delve. These are NPC like mission agents that will do the locator piece. That's what these things do. And they'll sit there. You have to have standings at a certain point, which is why I was just mentioning you either got to run a whole bunch of missions until your eyes just fucking bleed, or you spend some ISK and get tags.
Last time we did, or I did a locator, I think it was maybe 600 to 750 million tags, and a couple of hours of work. So not actually that bad in the end.
Fun fact about locator agents: if you have any blazing pullers, or if you ever plan to set up blazing, there are Garista locator agents that you can use with the same standings that you get for blazing.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's cool.
So,
if anybody's not familiar with blazing, it's we don't do it in Delve, but it makes you a ton of money. There's forum posts about that as well.
Are there factions with locator agents that also have research agents?
You can get the R&D agents as well. You can get data cores and stuff for them. That's not. I honestly still have some from way back in the day when I was a high sec puppy, but yeah, I'm just gonna leave it at that.
Are you, you were? I think you still are.
I think I still have a couple.
I'm a nullsec puppy now, Apple. Thank you very much.
Okay.
I still have a couple from back when the T2 lottery was going on.
Okay, so we had a little change to our schedule because Freeman managed to badger an extra special guest for us. So we are going to make a little change. I'm going to do a new ping here in just a moment with the new schedule, but I have updated the MOTD there. So we have our internal affairs person's going to be here. So Caitlin's going to be talking to y'all here in just a few minutes, but we're not going to let Delta and Brodog get off the hook just yet. So.
Oh no.
And then don't forget, guys, we are recording all of this. Those will be posted. So, for those of you having to leave, don't worry. We're going to get them up. They'll be posted somewhere, probably SoundCloud. I haven't decided yet. I honestly have been lazy, and I'll do that later.
So I think we were actually just about wrapped up, to be honest, Ranger. But yeah, guys, if there are any questions that you didn't get to ask or didn't want to ask in public, feel free to message Delta or myself on Jabba. As I said, you can pretty much just find us in the Elysium Jabba room. It's probably the easiest place to find our Jabba handles. Delta, did you have anything else?
I actually have a question for you guys. This was raised earlier, much earlier, but are there anything besides the Falcons as the Sino ships? One of our fleet members asked that earlier. I know Recon uses Falcons. Is there anything else that you guys are aware of that people are using? I mean, besides Blops battleships, just within the Recon ships.
So all the Recons do technically get used. It's just the Falcon has the most amount of EHP or raw, tank out of it. So that's the one we've kind of shifted towards. But all of them are viable to be able to light Sinos. Again, it's just we want our Sinos to survive the longest, so we've chosen the one with the most amount of tank. Obviously, if you had like an armor fleet with you, you'd probably want to get like a Pilgrim or something like that, or one of the Black Ops battleships like a Redeemer. Those ones have probably about 2 or 3 times the amount of tank, but they're a lot harder to move around, and that's why we primarily stick with the Recons and the Falcon specifically.
one thing you can do if you want one ship fast, the Enforcer, that's the Concord Recon, you don't have to have a cruiser skill to level 5. So that saves you a lot of training. So if you are like crabbing along in your hell and you need a recon ult for that and you want that fast, just get yourself in an Enforcer and then slowly train up towards a Falcon and use that. That's just an amazing ship for that.
When you're going into Cruiser 5, you're looking at a month-long train. So that's another reason that we've chosen the Falcon. It is the best ship from the tank standpoint, but also a lot of people use Tengus, which also requires that, and a variety of other level 5 cruiser skill Caldari, so it's useful as well.
It also overlaps with the Eagle, which is the most used mainline ship at this point.
Yeah. The name escaped my head at the moment. So thank you, Cryptic.
For those of you guys who are just joining us, we are in T5Z, so you can jump in there and then just work to me. Everything's in the MOTD. We are just camping the gate tonight. We have actually gotten a kill. And I can't remember if I said this or not to the fleet. That was the first kill we've ever gotten on one of these gate camping classes.
What fleet?
So it's under, and then Apple relinked it there. So it's under Ranger. It's fuck, I forgot what I called this fleet now. What is it's under Ranger?
WTF 105 Special Edition under Ranger Gamma.
There you go. What Florian said. We've just had our couple of talks. I know a lot of you guys have been at work. Don't worry, we recorded everything. We're gonna post it all here. We are going to do one last call for our Recon guys, and then we're gonna kick them to the curb as we have been doing all night. Well, not for the Recon guys, but for everybody. And we're gonna bring Caitlin in, and she's gonna talk about internal affairs stuff and what happens when you all break the rules, you cheating bastards. So final questions for our Recon guys. Anybody have any before we move on to our next speaker? All right, I'm gonna go with no. So Delta, Broda, thank you guys for coming out, and we're gonna kick you guys out, and Caitlin's gonna talk to us about internal affairs and how that works. And honestly, this is one of the handful of speakers who are going to talk tonight that I truthfully don't know what you do. So, Caitlin, please take it away, because I got nothing.
It's okay. I actually just make it up as I go.
And everybody's been doing that all night. It's all good.
So, as far as internal affairs goes, I guess who I am is, I've been with the Alliance now a couple of years, starting back in 2014, minus a little bit of a break, and then I came back. I saw Karma Fleet and decided to join up with Karma Fleet. And I know this is the alliance-based fleet, not just a Karma Fleet fleet. So I won't, I will try to be a little bit more broad than just Karma Fleet specific, since there are other corporations that all have their internal structure for rules enforcement. And as an alliance director, also as I'm a counterintelligence director, I often have to go to the enforcement arm of various corporations to enforce what I do, since as an alliance person I don't have corporation roles. And so I work with internal affairs people from a lot of different corporations to actually get stuff done. And in Karma Fleet especially, I'll say, since that's the one I'm most familiar with, I don't like to think of it as rules enforcement, since that's what most people think, that you're the police. I guess you're the one who has to go talk to all the players that are not necessarily conforming to the rules, or when people are really angry, you're the one that has to kick the door down and run in and fix everything. And there is a little bit to that, but I would like to say that I don't think that the players necessarily mean to get out of line. I think that everybody understands that this is a weird space community, and they all enjoy the camaraderie that comes along with that. And so there are very few people that set out to break rules, and so rule enforcement is something that I try to avoid if we can, since there's not a lot of people that are intentionally doing that. Now, as we get to be a large organization, sometimes there's, the camaraderie between two people on a belt that don't know each other. Sometimes there's issues and stuff like that. But in general, the people who are active enough to really be engaged and really be around enough where they could develop an issue with somebody else, they also are the type of people that want to be part of the community. So honestly, there's not a lot of that rule enforcement. And well, it's important that when there is a rule enforcement issue, that if you do have to correct an issue, you correct it quickly and to the point. You don't dilly-dally. You make sure that everyone understands what the rules are and that you need to stick to the rules. And if you're if the level of enforcement required is removal, sometimes that happens, but honestly there's usually other levels of enforcement that you can do to make sure that everyone understands what the rules are. You're educating people on a social standard that we've all agreed on to live in this space community together and be friends in a large organization. So a lot of times, hopefully, you're not actually seriously enforcing the rules. The worst thing that I have to do is decide that somebody is not fit for the community and the community is better off with their removal. And that's not something that I like to do, because I think that there was a time when I was definitely a weirdo, and I would not want to be judged in that way. And so I don't like to judge other people necessarily in that way, as long as they're fitting in with the community. So that's my main take on what internal affairs does. Besides that, of course, they work with other groups in the alliance to be the receptacle for when other people have issues with the corporation, and you can kind of judge, is this is this actually breaking rules, or is this just a dispute between personalities and things like that. And so there's some kind of working with the alliance that you do, and you're the person that counterintelligence talks to, of course. But in general, with the mood that's kind of set, that comes down from, in our corporation, Karma Fleet specifically, comes down from Merkelchen, where he has a very relaxed attitude where Merc loves everybody and everybody loves Merc. So you're kind of putting that same kind of vibe out there, where you make sure that everyone's having a good time, and you don't want to remove anybody that's that could be reformed and that could just be making a short-term mistake. Removal is a long-term solution to what could be a short-term issue with the person's understanding or the person's real life situations or something like that. Maybe they're making a bad decision because of things that are going on, and so you don't want to make that long-term the long-term judgment on somebody that might just be having a little bit of a bad time. Now, if someone's coming in with, especially in Karma Fleet, if people throw out the edgelord stuff, like they're throwing out the races and the sexism, the homophobia, transphobia, or things like that, that stuff gets shut down right away. So because there's no room for necessarily edgelords and Karma Fleet. There's a lot of places where that is accepted, but if you let that stuff grow, people will think that it is accepted in Karma Fleet, and so you need to make sure people understand that that's not. So that's one of the quickest ways to get myself or Merc upset at you, and that's a quick way to be shown the door. But other than edge cases like that, we try to work with everybody and keep everybody in a nice little space, hippie commune. I'll just keep rambling if you guys don't have questions, because I do have more stuff, but I'll take a little break here for if anybody does have a question, since I've been rambling for a while.
I've got one if nobody else does, but you guys in the fleet, if you've got something, please ask away. Okay, I guess I'll go with mine. Caitlin, you mentioned CI. Do you work really closely with the Diplos as well? Like what's kind of, where do you stand? Do you need to be a Diplo kind of a person to do internal affairs? Is a CI background helpful to that? Like what's the crosstalk between those three organizations there?
Well, honestly, there's not too much of a crosstalk. Being an Alliance CI director and then the internal affairs director for Karma Fleet, there's obviously a little bit of wearing two different hats, but they're definitely, I act different ways for them completely. Like in CI, I show a lot of people the door. Internal affairs, I sit a lot of people down and talk to them. They don't necessarily cross unless CI needs to reach into Karma Fleet, but then at that point I've made a decision as CI. So there's IA's only response at that point would be to comply with the CI's judgment. So there's not necessarily a lot of crosstalk, but there is a lot of skills that are used in many of them. Now, like I said, I've been with the Alliance for a few years now, and as most people with or as many of the people with space jobs in the Alliance, I started out with Karma Fleet recruiting. Like so many of our Alliance starts out with Karma Fleet recruiting because it's a very organized place. It's there's a lot of people passing through as members that need to be handheld through the application process, and that they need to be reviewed, and judgment calls need to be made. And so that's one of the first places that people really are given an opportunity in Karma Fleet, especially. And I'd imagine that other corporations have their own place like this, but for Karma Fleet, it's almost always Karma Fleet recruiting, just because that's the place that gives people a chance to show that they can stick with a project for a while, that they can do the day-to-day work, that they can make the judgment calls and things like that. And a lot of the Karma Fleet recruiting moves on to other positions in Karma Fleet or positions in the Alliance because they've demonstrated that experience and dedication to the corporation and to the Alliance to do that work in day in and day out. And that skill set in Karma Fleet recruiting, where you're judging whether somebody is an active player that is somebody that we would want in Karma Fleet, a lot of those skills do carry over. So if you're if future people are going to be pulled from anywhere in Karma Fleet, there's a very good chance that they'll be pulled from Karma Fleet recruiting, somebody that has demonstrated that skill set, the ability to make those rational judgments, not judgments based on someone's initial statements. They may come in thinking that they're that goons are all edgelords, and they may come in with a personality that you necessarily won't see from the average Karma Fleet person. The recruiters tend to be the ones who set them straight, calm them down, and say, okay, we're going to go through this in a professional manner and handle this. And I of course stretch that when I say professional, because of course we're allowed to everyone's allowed to joke around and let their personality shine through, but at the same time they understand the balance of getting the professional work done. And that's where internal affairs tends to pull from, and that's where other alliance positions, if they're pulling from Karma Fleet, generally you're pulling from somebody that has held a space job before in Karma Fleet. Everybody that holds a space job in Karma Fleet started out in recruitment. As far as the Diplos, I wouldn't say there's a shared skill set, but we do work with a lot of the Diplos, especially if our allies have an issue with someone in our corporation, the Diplos will come to the internal affairs people, or often the Diplos, since they're an alliance function, they'll go through the Goonfugger affairs, they'll go through CI or something like that. But sometimes, depending on what the issue is, they'll reach out in Kremlin for a corporation representative. And for Karma Fleet, the IA team would be that.
One thing I'd like to put in here is that I know mentioning a lot of the Karma Fleet, Karma Fleet doesn't necessarily make the difference between joining one of these organizations. It just happens that Karma Fleet's one of the larger groups, and there are a lot of people involved with some of the alliance functions who are from Karma Fleet. But there's a lot of people here like Delta and myself and a lot of other people who come from a lot of other corporations. So please don't feel that Karma Fleet is required in any way, shape, or form.
That is a very good point. And I don't mean to characterize it that way at all. My background is through Karma Fleet, so I can explain the case the way I came up through our ranks. But like I said, every corporation does have their own structure that kind of mirrors Karma Fleet. They may not have as large of a recruitment structure, but they may have somebody who deals with inner Kremlin kind of disputes and things like that. And those are definitely ways to get involved in the corporation. And if you're going to get a role in your corporation, proving yourself is always the way to start. And if you want a specific role, it might be a little while before that specific role opens up, and the best way to show that you're the person to take that specific role is to show that you have the responsibility and you make the judgment calls in line with those people who are making the selections. So, understand what from a Karma Fleet point of view, of course, understanding what Merkel Chen wants is definitely the way to get started with proving your judgment calls. And the same with the CEOs of other corporations, where you're looking to get a leg up, or maybe to show that responsibility for in the future moving into a position such as IA or some of the other administrative roles.
Okay, so we tortured Caitlin for a little while, making her talk. Do you guys have any questions for her? Yeah, there's one thing was pointed out in Fleet. You can't go around sniping people out of other cores. So, yeah, I mean, we call it headhunting or whatever you want to do it. But if you've got an issue, you can look at the thread that Zig linked, and you can see if you're in there. One thing to keep in mind, if you guys come up to it that you have to switch cores within the Imperium, that's pretty easy to do. Don't jump into Horde and try and come right back. That would not end well for you.
So
I have very big opinions about people switching corps. I try to avoid it. Because, in my opinion, yeah, your corp is there, but we are an alliance, and we're not really a corp-based organization. So if you don't have fun in the one corp, why would you have fun in the next corp? Because most of the things that you're doing will be happening in an alliance. So if you don't have fun, join any SIG or other squad to find people there to have fun. That's where our alliance is made of, and it's not made of corps that are doing things together. Sometimes corps are doing that, and that's perfectly fine. But the most important thing is join SIGs and squads. That's why Ranger invited a lot of us here, and find your fun there, and do your fun, and find your place there, because that's how this alliance coalition has been formed and is working.
Oh, I definitely agree with that one. Especially, there's no reason like the people who bounce. If you're coming from, an active corporation with an active leadership, and you're joining another corporation with active leadership, you're going to probably find out that things are going to go the same way because you're really working at an alliance level, like the rest of Goonswarm and the rest of the Imperium does in general. But there are exceptions because there are some corps where they may be on a downturn. Maybe they were super active at one time, and if your leadership is away and you're looking to step up, maybe they'll let you take on more roles and bring that corporation back. But at the same time, as if the corporation isn't necessarily interacting with the alliance and you want to get involved in this stuff, that's the one time where I would think that a corporation move is not necessarily a bad thing. But in general, since we work at the alliance level, if you're part of a corporation with active leadership and you're moving to another corporation with active leadership, it may appear that the grass is always greener, but really we all do the same thing. We're still Goonswarm, regardless of what corporation you're in.
One thing I want to point out, this was asked and talked about much earlier, just echo chamber, Apple and Caitlin, is when you look at doing SIGs, as far as I know, there are no SIGs that are restricted to a single member core to that. They're open to the entire Imperium, or at least the vast majority of them. And I know when I sit down and look at applications into the SIG that I'm in, if I see you jumping around to 10 different cores in a year, you're automatically on my suspicion list of you're a fucking spy. So don't just hop cores because you think it's interesting. That's just stupid.
Plus a few.
I will say this: I don't even look at the corp. I just look at the corp history to see if there's changes recently. I don't care which corp. When looking at people to hire for GSOL or anything else, it's all about how you fit and how trustworthy you are, and that's the big thing, that the SIGs and squads structure of our alliance is different from everybody else. We actually encourage a cohesive alliance social structure versus corp based.
Oh, somebody's trying to grab that Loki. I'll go to Loki, see if we can get him.
Yeah, they're already through.
Go for decloaks.
Damn it. Nah, they jumped out.
They came in from 1DQ.
That's sad.
Yeah, that's a bummer.
Trouble on the other side.
We got one on the other side.
Oh, never mind. They're actually nullified. They went straight through that Hector bubble.
Yeah, they're nullified.
Well, it doesn't really matter.
Is anyone insta-lock fed? Like in the system drones too?
Let me see. Who do we got that's insta-lock out here? It wouldn't be me. My Hector is fucking slow. Yeah, whoever just added that, pick a small ship and assist your drones to them. One of the interceptors.
So there was a question that someone asked probably about 5 minutes ago now in Fleet Chat that I did want to actually. I know that they were joking when they asked it, but they were asking whether.
Jumping back through to you.
I gotta stand by.
Poor Caitlin can't get in a word advice. Go ahead, Caitlin.
I can't see the gate camp, so I don't know when you guys need to be coordinating. Sorry, but yeah.
No, it's fine. Go ahead, Caitlin.
Someone was asking about like bribes and stuff like that. Now there's a joke that so there are some administrative things out there in different corps that come with administrative fees and stuff like that. Usually when people do those administrative fees, it's because it's a thing that they want to discourage and they're trying to make it they're trying to make it a thing where you don't just do all the time, because it does take a little bit of manual work. I try to avoid anything like that, but I can understand that some space jobs do want to incentivize people to do that work at the same time as de-incentivize people from doing it more, requesting it be done more than necessary. So I'm not personally a huge fan of the bribes, but I completely understand why they're there. I know that in some of the recruitment areas, when people are often begging to be the to get their friend in or something like that, or their alt in, there's some structures in the forums which allow you to do that. But internal affairs doesn't really have anything like that. Not saying that another person that runs internal affairs couldn't do that, since I know a lot of other structures do.
All right, guys, stand by. We may have some more guests coming through.
That will jump T5.
Manicore.
He was jumping back out.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can go on, Kellen.
And so we're approaching the last couple minutes that I'll be, rambling on, but I want to say that, like I mentioned, doing increasingly more responsibility job roles is kind of how you earn trust to get into them.
Manticore, une dit tâche.
Yeah, we know.
I have, in addition to internal affairs, I work with, I'm a CI director. I work with Black Hand as a handler. I did the recruitment team, and there's some other responsibilities that I've had in my corporation's chain of command. Now I'm a director in Karma Fleet as well. So increasing responsibility and showing that you can actually handle a job over a long term is probably one of the most important things, because that establishes a track record of your ability to show up every few days. And at that same time, over that time, people start to understand what your personality is like, what your judgment's like, and that's kind of the best way to sell yourself on available roles. I know I came here to talk about the job of internal affairs, and I turned this into how to get space jobs, but I think that's important, because there's a lot of people who are looking for a way to serve their corporation, and that's originally how I started. I wasn't looking to be the internal affairs director. I was looking for a way to help Karma Fleet out, and my corporation just asked me to take on additional roles, and I agreed, because I definitely believe in the mission of my corporation. So I wanted to help out, and I know there's a lot of people out there that are the same, and so I hope to be able to give them an idea of how to progress kind of along the way I did. Internal affairs itself is easy. If you're causing problems, I sit you down and ask you to stop and kind of talk to you to see what issues you're having, and see if we can get back on the same page. That's internal affairs. You're a therapist for a lot of people that are having issues. But it works out. I love helping the corporation, and I'm very glad that I stepped up a couple years ago to do recruitment, because it introduced me to a lot of great people that I'm still talking to every day.
Okay, those of you who are asking about a drone bunny, iTor seems to be the drone bunny winner there at 4,200.
To maybe add to something that Catelyn said is many people are really afraid of internal affairs, and I always joke about how scared I am of Caitlin and her form letters, but actually, as she said, you guys really don't need to be afraid of any of the directors if they contact you to set something straight or anything. I think that's a big issue for many line members. they're scared to take contact or get contact by directors of any sort. That is.
Yeah, we definitely try to be open. I know that there are, some people who have a harsh persona, but in general, I'm always open. If you need to contact me, then definitely I'm available. And I don't want anyone to feel, afraid to contact their leadership, because we're here to help the corporation run. We're here to help the alliance run. And if you have issues that need to be addressed, and you don't speak up, then there's a hiccup there that we can't help smooth out. And definitely internal affairs is all about smoothing out, those hiccups, for sure. Absolutely.
And actually, Apple just put the best thing in Fleet there. If you contact anybody, the absolute worst thing that you can do is say hi and then just wait, because that just annoys people. So if you've got a question, you can say hi and then type your question in there. Yeah, the other one, are you there? Can I speak to you for a minute? Do you have a second? The answer is no, because they're probably doing something. Type out your question and they will get back to you. I've rarely encountered that where I've pinged a director for something and I actually type can I ask you a question? I actually type my question and they don't get back to me, eventually. Sometimes they're out having dinner and all that kind of fun stuff, or they're asleep, but don't just say those things, because all you're doing is extending the amount of time it takes to answer whatever question you've got.
All of us go for different time zones. I mean, I get pinged sometime at 3 o'clock in the morning, and I don't see it for 4 or 5 hours. If you don't actually tell me your question by the time I actually see it, and ask you, hey, what's your question? It might take even longer. If you had just given me the question, I could say, okay, this is what we're going to do. I'll get started. You do your thing, and it gets resolved so much quicker.
I'll admit I definitely fall into that too. I welcome all messages, but if somebody sends me a message just asking, are you there, or something like that, I'll usually just close the message. I'm not doing that because I want to ignore somebody, but I know that eventually what they're going to do is they're going to send out the actual typed message, and then I'll save that, and then when I can address it, I will address it. But if you send me a message that has no action items in it, I'm going to close it because there's nothing to respond to. And I don't do that to be rude. I just do that because I get a lot of corporation leadership from different corporations asking me CI questions and stuff like that. And so I don't like keeping a million windows open that may not have content in them yet. So I just get rid of the ones that don't have content, and I assume that when they do have content, they'll contact me back.
It's because crashing Jabber is a thing with too many windows open. That does happen.
Yeah, especially Pigeon. Absolutely.
It's like opening the emote button. Don't do it.
Yeah, you should never do that. Okay, so we're going to get Caitlin out. Thank you for coming. So I should tell you all of this. We were trying to get somebody in, and we shanghaied Caitlin like 5 minutes or something before she started talking. So she really had no warning that we were coming for her today. So I appreciate her coming out. We're going to switch gears a little bit. Our next two speakers are dealing with somewhat similar things, yet slightly different. So we're going to start with Apple. He's going to be next. He's going to be talking about Insurgent Squad, and then we're going to follow him up with the Black Hand. So we managed to get these two guys to be back to back. So we've got all of the crazy shenanigans that we do in other organizations to make their lives difficult. I'm going to call that Apple's job with the Insurgent Squad. And then just to watching everything that they're doing. We did the fleet movements with the Recon earlier. That's out in space, pretty easy to see, relatively speaking. Black Hand is going to be looking more internal. So just keep that in mind. Recon's out in space. Black Hand is going to be a little more internal piece. And if I have screwed that up, I'm sure Apple will fix it here. And on that note, Apple, you take it away.
Hello. I'm Adalbert. Most of you probably know me, at least if you have been doing fleets, etc. is as being an FC.
Actually, sorry, Apple, can I stop you for just 1 second? I need to fix something on the
Yeah,
recording.
Apple,
Give me 2 seconds.